Fred Austin.
Present.
Michael Best. Lisa Ellison.
Here.
Lyman Hardy.
Here.
Rita Jackson Gilbert.
Here.
Minnie Johnson Stewart.
Here.
Steve Little.
Here.
Michael White.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we received notice that Thompson Fords, Sharon Gray, and Charles McLaughlin will not be present tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alton. We'd like to start off with a prayer. Mr. Little, if you'll please lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you tonight, Lord, for this business meeting that we can come to, this planning board meeting. Lord, we trust that all will be pleasing in your sight. We thank you for all the blessings of life that you so richly bestow upon us. We pray that as we go through this meeting tonight, that all hearts might be clear to the end, and we might again be pleased in your sight. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Hardy, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, it's time to approve the minutes from last meeting on June 18th. Does anybody have any corrections or move to, Mr. Hardy, I believe we have a motion?
Second motion.
Mr. Little? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'd like at this time to open up public addresses to the board. And I don't think we have any folks that asked to speak in general terms to the board, so I'd like to go ahead and close the public addresses to the board. I would like to make note, though, we have a very busy agenda tonight. Therefore, we're going to stick to our 3-minute comment times. And if our board has any further questions of you, we may ask you back to the podium after all the comments have been heard. So I appreciate your cooperation with that. So tonight, one of the first requests we have this evening is a rezoning request for Trip Holdings.
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Board members. As Mr. Austin just mentioned, our first rezoning request this evening has been submitted by Trip Holdings, LLC. The request is to rezone 3.85 acres of their properties. It's 3 different parcels. It's parcel 22693, 78604, and 78515. And these properties are located on the southern side of US 264 East, just east of its intersection with Old Pactolus Road. And the request is to go from rural residential to general commercial. Give you a location idea of where this property is. Again, it's just on 264 on the southern side, just east of the city of Greenville, heading to Washington. Some site pictures of the property. That's the property that we're looking at from 264. And just adjacent to the property owned by the same property owner is an existing dental firm or practice that is currently zoned general commercial. That is looking east to the city of Washington, looking west back towards Greenville. And then just directly east, west of the property, intersection with Old Pactolus Road. Across the highway, there's some existing agricultural farmland, as well as a residence. And there is a sand mine in the general area of the property just west on 264 at the intersection of Ramshorn Road. The existing land use, you see there, the proposed area for rezoning tonight is kind of highlighted there with that black dash line. The red there is the existing dental facility, as well as you see some orange residential in the area, a lot of undeveloped and agricultural property as well. The future land use plan and the future land use map does designate this area as commercial crossroads. And this is established, it's located at or around established crossroad communities. These areas have a history of commercial development that serves a larger surrounding area. Appropriate uses include a mix of residential, public, institutional, and commercial uses. Non-residential uses can be located near residential uses with appropriate buffers. These are typically located at different crossroad communities. You see US 264 and Old Pactolus Road is listed specifically there with some of the other crossroad communities in the county. The uses are a mix of single-family detached homes, public and institutional, and commercial uses. And as far as utility access, there's some water access, but mostly on-site septic systems. The existing zoning in the area, again, the dental facility is currently zoned general commercial. Again, that property that is zoned commercial is already, or is owned also by the applicant. So the proposed zoning, again, is general commercial, which is intended to accommodate a range of retail, service, office, limited wholesale, and moderate density multifamily residential uses in areas that have access to major thoroughfares and the necessary utilities to support such development. And Pitt County Planning staff does find that this request is consistent with the envisioned Pitt County 2045 land use plan. The area requested for rezoning is designated as commercial crossroads and allows a mix of single-family detached homes, public institutional uses, and commercial uses. The area proposed for rezoning has frontage and direct access to US 264 East, and an existing dental office is located directly adjacent to the subject properties and is owned by the applicant. Additionally, there are 2 existing active sand mines and a private event wedding facility in the general vicinity of the subject property. Planning staff does find that this request is reasonable and in the public interest because there is existing general commercial zone property adjacent to the subject property, and there are limited residential uses in the immediate area along US 264 East. Additionally, future non-residential uses will require site plan approval by planning staff. And again, planning staff does recommend approval of the request. Comments will now be entertained by the planning board, who will make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, who are currently scheduled to hold a public hearing on August 18th at 6:00 p.m. So now I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to you, Chairman, for public comments.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of people listed to speak. We have Scott Anderson, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Scott Anderson. I am here tonight on behalf of the applicant. I am a local civil engineer, and this project is the site of a current existing dental office that serves the community. It is very successful, and they need to expand. So this request will allow them to expand the dental practice and to expand their parking. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. Anderson? Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chris West.
Good evening. I was just here to speak on behalf of it as well, and if you had any other questions, I was just going to repeat what he was going to say. So,
All righty. Board, do you have any questions of Mr. West? No? And does the board have any other questions about the matter?
Being quite honest, he answered my question when he answered that one.
There we go.
thank you.
Time to entertain a motion.
And if you can close the public comments. Sorry, Chairman, to interrupt you.
I always forget that part.
All good.
I'd like to close the public comments to this issue. Now,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I move that we recommend approval of this request by Tripp Holdings.
Ms. Ellison?
I have a question about the packet of emails that we have. Do any of them relate to this matter?
No.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
thank you.
Good question. So we have a motion to approve, Mr. Little, and seconded by Mr. Hardy. All those in favor of approving this rezoning, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left. Motion carries. Moving to the next rezoning request, HSP Investments. Mr. Gooby.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our second rezoning request tonight. It's HSP Investments LLC. The request is to rezone 33.4 acres of property owned by HSP as well as property owned by Stephen and Jenna Horvath. These are parcel numbers 8535 and 89502. They're located off of Alvin Road, north of its intersection with NC 33 East. And the request is to go from rural agricultural to rural agricultural conditional district in order to operate a sand mine. This is the vicinity map. You see Alvin Road is the sort of curved road there. And this is just to the northeast of that road. This is a view of the site itself. Another view of the property. There's an existing mobile home nearby. This is an existing path or soil path that leads back to the property. They will not be utilizing this path for access though, and I'll explain that in more detail in just a minute. There's an existing sand mine that's also adjacent to the property. This is the adjacent property where the proposed haul road will be going through. And this is just another view of that site as well. And this is just a path that runs through the existing sand mine. This is where they'll be routing the truck traffic for the proposed haul road. And then this is the entrance that comes off of Alvin Road. This was a sand mine that was approved about a year or so ago by this board. And they have added this haul road to get traffic off of that curve in Alvin Road. So this is the entrance that they'll also be using for this mine as well. This is Alvin Road looking back towards the mine to the west. These are just adjacent properties or adjacent residences next to Alvin Road. You can see the existing land use primarily agricultural. Again, there's some residential. There is a residence back towards the back between this site and the existing sand mines that are out there. And then you see residential along Alvin Road itself. The future land use map designates it as open space conservation. This designation applies to lands that are deemed inappropriate for many development types due to physical or environmental barriers, including a high flood risk. Most of this property is actually in the floodplain. It includes properties within the 100-year floodplain, significant wetland areas, parks, and lands that have been designated for conservation and open space. Primary uses typically include timber and agricultural activities and recreation, and may include limited developments not in conflict with existing residential uses or significant environmental resources. Again, this designation is designated in floodplains, conservation easements, and parks. Typical uses would be conservation, forestry, agriculture, outdoor recreation, and very limited new development, and utility access in these areas is typically limited. The zoning map, as you see, it's designated RA currently. The request is to go to RA conditional district, and that conditional zoning district does allow for the proposal of a specific use with reasonable conditions to ensure the compatibility of that use with the use and enjoyment of neighboring properties. And again, the proposed use that they're requesting is for a sand mine. Our zoning ordinance does have specific standards for sand mines. These include a minimum 100-foot separation from the edge of any pit to the permit boundary of the mine. Hours of operation when there is blasting involved. There's not any blasting involved with sand mining. It's typically just excavating. But as you'll see with the conditions, they are proposing some hours of operation in spite of that. Sand mines also have to be screened, and they have to obtain a valid state-issued mining permit. So this is the site plan. It's kind of split. There's a closer view on the left-hand side of the screen and then a more blown-out view on the right-hand side. You see the rezoning area there highlighted in red. On the right-hand side, you can kind of see the curve in Alvin Road there. And then the excavation area is highlighted there in the brown. They are proposing a 6-foot berm for screening around the perimeter of the mine. As I said, there is an existing sand mine there just to the west of this mine. And there's also another one on the other side of that, but for this purpose, we're showing this because the proposed haul road is proposed to be routed through the adjoining properties and through that sand mine and out to Alvin Road through that other entrance. There are some riparian buffers that they'll have to stay out of in terms of the excavation. Those have to be maintained. And then to the north, just to the north of the subject area, there's a floodway area that limits the development in that area. Planning staff does find that the request is consistent with Envision Pitt County 2045 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The designation is open space conservation on the future land use map, and the uses in there are predominantly agricultural with limited residential land uses. Also, land use policy LU4 in our plan does recommend specific site and or operational standards for uses such as sand mines, such as additional separation requirements or buffering from existing development. Staff also finds that the request is reasonable in the public interest because, again, there is very limited residential developments directly adjacent to the proposed sand mine, and because there are 2 active existing sand mines in the area. In addition, the mine will be screened and buffered from nearby properties, and truck traffic will be routed through the existing sand mines to avoid disturbing the residences that are in the curve of Alvin Road. That was the main point of trying to route it around rather than come out at that curve, is because those folks in the past had numerous problems with the sand mine that was back there, and when the last one came through, we worked to get that traffic off of that curve and out through the new entrance. So that's what they're proposing to do with this mine as well. So staff does recommend approval and recommends several additional conditions. First is no zoning compliance permit shall be issued until a site plan is prepared in accordance with Appendix B of the zoning ordinance and submitted to our office for review and approval. Screening has to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the ordinance. However, if a berm is determined to be adequate alternative screening method, the minimum height of the berm shall be 6 feet, and that is what they're showing on the site plan, is a 6-foot screening berm. They'll have to obtain a flood development permit from Pitt County Planning Department prior to development. They'll have to submit an erosion control plan to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and then obtain an operating permit from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources prior to any work on the site. They also have to maintain a 50-foot riparian buffer on all stream features that are present on the site, unless they obtain documentation from DWQ or our office that the feature is exempt from the Tar-Pamlico buffer regulations. They have to obtain a commercial driveway permit from NCDOT and comply with all requirements for access to the subject property. Again, all truck traffic associated with the mining operation should be routed through the existing sand mines on parcel numbers 85515, 88475, and 20260, and shall access Alvin Road via parcel number 20260. Signage shall be posted at the driveway of the curve of Alvin Road on parcel 1697 to prohibit truck traffic for mining purposes from using that driveway. Then they proposed hours and days of operation for 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. So with that, Mr. Chair, we'd like to now entertain any public comments. The board will then make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and they're scheduled to hold a public hearing on August 18th. So with that, Mr. Chair, we'd like to open up for public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Gooby. Before we open up to public comments, does the board have any questions of Mr. Gooby? Silence. Thank you, Mr. Gooby. I'd like to open up the public comment period for this sand mine rezoning. I've got Ken Malpass.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. My name is Ken Malpas. We're doing exactly what Eric said. We been working on this about a year. Originally, we were coming down through the south and running through the old path, and the neighbors did not want that because of the situation that happened with the last time with the dust and being so close to their home. So we've worked out with 2 adjacent properties to take this path across the red area that was shown, and we'll go back out through the Tripp farm. So all the trucks will go out through the same entrance that Tripp Brothers, and he's actually the one that's going to be digging and using this proposed sand mine. So it'll be one entity that's actually working off of Alvin Road at this time. Be glad that, and Mr. Tripp is here if you need to ask any questions or anything of me.
Thank you, Mr. Malpass. Board, do you have any questions of Mr. Malpass? Okay. If the board wishes to make a motion either to approve or deny, please include the consistency statement that you'll find on page 68 and 69 in your agenda as a guideline. Something we might have to revisit the previous motion. Ms. Ellis.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning request from HSP Investments LLC and find it is consistent with the Envision Pitt County 2045 Comprehensive Land Use Plan and is reasonable because the request is compatible with similar uses in the surrounding area.
We have a motion, Ms. Ellison, seconded by Mr. Hardy. Any board discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand in approval of this motion. All those opposed, raise your left hand. This motion does carry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we move on to the next item, I think we had to revisit the trip rezoning motion.
If I may, so typically, if y'all are voting with staff's recommendation, we typically use what we present on the two slides with the consistency and the reasonableness slide. If y'all want to change that, fine, but in the past, we've just used that as presented if y'all are voting with staff's recommendation. So I'll leave that to you if anybody wants to word anything differently. But otherwise, we typically use the staff recommendation when we get you to sign, Mr. Chairman, so I can revisit those if you like real quick.
If it's not necessary, then we do not need to
Okay.
carry on that. Thank you. So now, on to the next rezoning request, the Hexagon Development.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rogers, you're back.
So our next rezoning request has been submitted by Hexagon Development LLC, and they are requesting to rezone approximately 1,049 acres of property located just east of the town of Grifton. The roadways it's going to be along, and I'll show you here shortly on a site map, but it's in the area of Stokestown, St. John's Road, East Hanrahan, Brown Hodges Road, NC 118, and Frank Kilpatrick. And the request is to go from rural agricultural to rural agricultural conditional district for the operation of a solar farm. There are 15 parcels included with this request with 8 individual property owners. They're listed on the screen. I will just mention for the record the property owners, Glenda K. Cannon, Howard Jean Cannon, Edna Nelsa Anderson, Denise Whitaker Askew, Evan Farm and Rental LLC, Deborah W. Cannon, Emily Nelson Exum, and Mary Jo Q. Jefferson are the property owners included with this request. And again, there are 15 parcels. Site location, again, it's just east of the town of Grifton, outside their town limits in ETJ, in that general area I just described with those roads. And again, I'll give you a better map here shortly. Some pictures of the surrounding area. This is the rezoning area from East Hanrahan Road. This is the rezoning area from Gum Swamp Road. This is the view to the west along East Hanrahan Road and to the south along Gum Swamp Road. This is the rezoning area for Frank Kilpatrick Road. The north up Frank Kilpatrick Road and then south down Frank Kilpatrick Road. The rezoning area from Brown Hodges Road and Stokestown St. John's Road. That's the east side of Stokestown St. John's and the western side of Stokestown St. John's. The rezoning area north of NC 118, south of 118, and this is to the southeast along Brown Hodges Road, and this is to the north along Stokestown St. John's Road, the east along NC 118. A few adjacent pictures. This is an adjacent agricultural use, another adjacent agricultural use, some residential properties in the area, as well as an existing solar farm on Brown Hodges Road. And this one is actually in the jurisdiction of the town of Grifton, but this is an existing solar farm. So that was a lot of pictures, but just want to give you a general idea of the location in case you haven't had a chance to get out there. The existing land use in the area, you see highlighted in yellow are the areas requested for rezoning. All of those are designated as, or are currently agricultural or undeveloped. In the area, there's a lot of undeveloped ag land as well as some residential, especially along the roadways. You can see they're highlighted in yellow. The blue is mainly a couple of different churches out there in the area. The Envision Pitt County land use map does designate this area as agricultural. And this designation does include prime farmlands that are vital to agricultural production within the county. Activities include agriculture, forestry, and limited low-density residential and commercial or institutional uses. They're typically located near strategic agricultural lands and surrounding areas. Uses include agriculture, agribusiness, forestry, limited commercial, single-family properties, and occasional low-density, small-scale residential subdivision. Utility access, on-site septic systems, and community water service or private wells, and very limited sewer availability. Density is generally less than 1 dwelling unit per acre. The existing zoning in the area is pretty much all rural agricultural. The one little red spot there at the corner of, I believe, East Hanrahan and Stokestown, St. John's, is zoned commercial. I think that's an old country store that's actually now being used as a church. The proposed zoning, so they're not requesting to change anything to a different zoning district, much like the sand mine we just saw. So the request is to stay rural agricultural, but with the conditional district to allow a specific use, which I'll get to in just a second. But RA is intended to accommodate a very low density residential uses as well as associated public and institutional uses, low intensity commercial uses, and agricultural related industrial uses, which are interspersed throughout areas that are principally characterized as rural in nature. These districts reflect the diverse nature of land uses within predominantly rural areas and therefore permits a wide array of land uses. A conditional district does allow for the approval of a proposal for a specific use with reasonable conditions to ensure the compatibility of the proposed use with the use and enjoyment of neighboring properties. Again, the request is for a solar energy facility, also known as a solar farm. Some development standards from our zoning ordinance is Section 8, subsection E of the Pitt County zoning ordinance. So the separation requirements, there is a 50-foot setback from property lines and a minimum 100-foot separation from any residence for any parts of the solar farm. And for the inverters, which is a specific part of the solar farm, there is a 150-foot separation requirement. The maximum height of 25 feet for all equipment and structures. Submittal requirements, a site plan, standard drawings of the components, copies of lease agreements and solar easements, evidence of utility interconnection, decommissioning plans and cost estimate, structural requirements, and they must also meet all building code requirements. And staff has confirmed that all the site plan or all the submittal requirements have been submitted prior to presentation this evening. Underground electric wiring is required, fencing and screening requirements, signage with emergency contact information, and abandoned equipment must be removed after 1 year of inactivity. So the site plan we received, and I do want to note that we've been working with the applicant for almost a year now, so there's been several different revisions of this site plan. I'm sure the applicant will get to this, but there's a community meeting in January where they heard feedback from the community and they've scaled back the project. I think originally it had over 30 parcels or close to 30 parcels, and again, it's been reduced to 15 for this project. And again, I think the applicant's probably going to get into what they've done to try to respond to some of the concerns they heard. But you see there's two different sections here. That northern section, I'm going to break them down. This is the northern section kind of west of Gun Swamp Road, Stokestown St. John's Road, just north of East Hanrahan Road. The rezoning area highlighted in that red dash line. There are some wetlands and drainage canals on the property that they have to stay out of. I've highlighted those in green there. The actual solar panels highlighted in yellow. The inverters are the red dots there. And again, those are the ones that have to have a little bit further separation, the 150 foot, which they have met here. And I will add that the applicant has increased that setback from the residential property lines at 300 feet. And again, I think they'll get into that a little bit further to kind of answer some of the concerns from the citizens. The southern portion of the project, rezoning area is highlighted there. Again, there is a little bit of wetlands and drainage canals they'll have to stay out of. The actual solar panels on the two southern pieces with the inverters highlighted in the red dots. And then in top right is kind of the, along Frank Kilpatrick Road is the substation, switchgear, and best equipment, which is some of the batteries and other equipment that's going to be separated from the actual panels themselves. Also the transmission line kind of going through the southern section of the project. Vegetation plan, see highlighted there in purple, the applicant, as required, is showing that they are going to maintain the required vegetation around the perimeter of the site, especially where there's not existing vegetation. The zoning ordinance does allow when there's existing vegetation. Typically, this is more so than what the zoning ordinances require. They will keep that as best they can, but otherwise they'll have to meet our vegetation requirements. The Pitt County Planning Staff does find this request is consistent with the Envision Pitt County 2045 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The area requested for rezoning is designated as agricultural on the future land use map, which allows limited commercial uses. In addition, there are a significant amount of wooded and wetland areas that provide spatial separation and screening between the site and adjacent residential land uses. Planning staff also finds that this request is reasonable and in the public interest because the request is for a conditional zoning district and spatial separation and screening are required as outlined in the Pitt County zoning ordinance. Additionally, there is an existing solar farm in the vicinity of the property, and the proposed site will not generate a significant amount of traffic or noise and will therefore have minimum impacts on the surrounding area. The applicant is also proposing to increase setbacks from residential property lines from 50 to 300 feet. Staff does recommend approval of the request with the following additional conditions. No zoning compliance permit shall be issued until a site plan prepared in accordance with Appendix B of the zoning ordinance is submitted to Pitt County Planning for review and approval. A soil erosion and sedimentation control plan is required for development of this property that results in land disturbance over 1 acre. To the maximum extent possible, the site shall utilize existing vegetation in order to visually screen the facility from adjoining properties and public right-of-ways. If existing vegetation cannot be utilized, a 10-foot wide landscape buffer yard planted in accordance with the requirements of Section 10H of the zoning ordinance shall be provided around the perimeter of the facility, and a landscaping plan indicating the proposed screening shall be submitted to Pitt County Planning with the site plan for review and approval. The site must comply with the Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance for nutrient control. Nutrient loading and peak flow calculations shall be reviewed and approved prior to any improvements involving more than 1/2 acre. A 50-foot riparian buffer is required on all stream features present on the site unless proper documentation is obtained from the North Carolina Division of Water Quality or the Pitt County Planning Department showing that the feature is considered exempt from the tar pan buffer regulations. They must obtain all required permits from Pitt County inspections. They must obtain any required driveway permits from NCDOT and comply with all requirements for access to the subject property. And all equipments and structures must be a minimum of 100 feet from all adjoining residential property lines and 50 feet from all property lines, except where shown as 300 feet from adjacent residential property lines on the submitted site plan. Chairman, public comments will now be entertained by the board, who will make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, who are scheduled to hold a public hearing on August 18th. So I will turn it over to you for that, unless you have any questions of me.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Does the board have any immediate questions for Mr. Rogers before we open up public comments? Good? All righty, thank you so much. I'd like now open the public comment period for this rezoning request. We do have, I believe, a group of folks representing Hexagon, Allie Kranz, and we do have several other folks. I don't know if you wanted to do a single spokesperson.
We'll go in order that is on the.
Thank you for that clarification. So on, first up is Chad Essick.
Good evening, Chairman Austin, members of the Pitt County Planning Board. My name is Chad Essick. I'm a zoning and land use attorney with the law firm of Pointer Spruill out of Raleigh. Here this evening on behalf of Hexagon Energy in connection with this proposed rezoning. This project, if approved, would develop an 80 megawatt solar energy generating system paired with a 30 megawatt battery energy storage system. Joining me here tonight are a number of folks from Hexagon as well as some third-party consultants that will discuss in detail the project, who will summarize the numerous reports that Hexagon has had done concerning the economic impacts of the project, environmental considerations that have been considered, property value impacts, sound and view shed analysis that's been done, as well as the overall health and safety of solar developments. Also joining us here tonight are several landowners of the project who would like to speak in support of the project. Staff has done an excellent job reviewing the rezoning request, so I'm just going to provide a high-level overview and then let the folks from Hexagon speak more specifically about the plan. And Allie Krantz, the Director of Development, will speak towards the end so she can answer more specific questions that the board may have. Hexagon is based in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's been developing energy projects since the 1990s. Over the past 20 years, Hexagon has developed and financed nearly 3,000 megawatts of operating energy projects across 17 different states, representing a capital of investment of about $1.5 billion. While Hexagon has just under 15 acres under option for this project, less than 400 acres will actually be located within the fenced area containing the solar equipment, and then about 116 acres will be comprised of actual solar panels. As will be explained, the remaining acreage will be used to accommodate significantly increased setbacks that are being proposed, access roads, and to avoid environmentally sensitive areas such as wetlands and flood hazard areas. As staff noted, we do meet all the requirements of the underlying development standards. And as a particular note, the site plan more than doubles and in some cases triples the setback requirements for the panels, inverters, and substations. Finally, as staff's noted in the staff report, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the envisioned Pitt County 2044 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, consistent with the agricultural designation, and conforms with a number of comprehensive plan policies related to mitigating the urbanization of pressures on farmland, promoting development that adds to the tax base, and provides for lower density development in strategic agricultural areas while supporting overall economic development in Pitt County. Additionally, I will note, as Ms. Krantz may discuss, Hexagon has been in communication with the leaders, town leaders in Grifton, who, as I understand it, support solar and would like to find ways to partner with Hexagon moving forward with this project. So I think now I'm going to turn it over to Ross Svets with Hexagon Energy, and he can talk a little bit more about the economic impacts of the project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Essick. Mr. Svets, you may approach.
Hi, good evening, members of the Planning Board. My name is Ross Svets. I'm a project developer with Hexagon Energy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Stokestown Solar Project. I'd like to share a brief summary of two important studies that evaluate the economic benefits and health and safety impacts of the proposed project. For the economic benefits, we had an economic analysis prepared for us by Mangum Economics. Over the 30-year life of the project, Stokestown Solar is expected to generate more than $3.2 million in county tax revenue, compared to just $90,000 if the land remained in agricultural use. That's a 36-fold increase. During construction alone, the project would support a total of 77 local job years and generate over $10.8 million in local economic output. Once operational, it will continue to support local jobs and spending each year. Solar projects like Stokestown create steady demand for skilled local labor. In terms of alignment with the county's economic goals, in April of this year, Boviet Solar celebrated the grand opening of their new solar panel manufacturing facility. The Hexagon team had the privilege of touring the facility today. It was impressive to see the scale of production and the approximately 1,300 jobs it will create in the community once manufacturing is at full capacity. Stokestown Solar complements this investment and ensures that more of the energy value chain remains here in Pitt County. Now turning to the health and safety, a 2017 study conducted by researchers at NC State found no significant health risk associated with the solar facilities like this one. Solar panels are primarily made of common materials such as glass and aluminum. According to the US EPA, while some solar panels contain trace amounts of materials like lead or cadmium, they are safely encapsulated and do not pose a risk of leaching or exposure. Even in extreme situations such as fire or storm damage, scientific testing shows that toxic elements remain contained and do not pose a meaningful risk to neighbors or the environment. Additionally, in June of 2023, House Bill 130 was enacted, which requires all solar projects greater than 2 megawatts to be decommissioned at the end of their usable life and the land returned to as close to pre-existing conditions as possible. In summary, Stokestown Solar brings strong local economic value with minimal risk and meaningful public health benefits. The project will not draw on county services such as roads, water and sewer, or schools, and the facility will be required to be decommissioned at the end of its lifetime. It is a low-impact tax-positive land use that aligns with both Pitt County's economic goals and supports the local economy. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
We'll reserve that right to call you back.
At the end? Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Svets. May I have Erica O'Donnell, please?
Good evening, members of the Planning Board. My name is Erica O'Donnell, and I'm a Senior Development Engineer at Hexagon Energy. I'd like to walk you through a few of the key engineering decisions that we've made to improve the system design incorporate community feedback, and increase the environmental compatibility of the Stokestown Solar Project. First, we moved the project substation and battery storage.
Sorry to interrupt you. If PIO can put the presentation they have uploaded on the screen for the board to see, please. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right, thank you. All right, this is the old plan.
Put on there.
This is the new one. All right. First, we've moved the project substation and battery storage equipment to a more centrally located parcel, allowing for greater setbacks from nearby homes. Because of these increased setbacks, the project not only meets Pitt County's noise ordinance, but exceeds it, ensuring no measurable impact to nearby residences. In response to community feedback, we removed panels from higher density residential areas entirely. We've removed the arrays that immediately bordered both sides of East Hanrahan Road and increased setbacks from the homes on Whaley Road to 500 feet. Additionally, we increased setbacks across the rest of the site. Our original design included 150-foot setbacks. However, after the community meeting, we made the decision to increase setbacks to a minimum of 300 feet from non-participating homes and public roads across the entire site. In many areas, this setback is even higher. We also took this opportunity to optimize and consolidate the site layout. This redesign allowed us to cut the number of parcels requiring rezoning by more than half, from 32 down to just 15. Fewer rezoned parcels means a more compact project footprint that better aligns with surrounding land uses. As required by the Pitt County zoning ordinance, we've included landscape screening around the site perimeter. Our plan includes a 10-foot wide perpetually maintained vegetated buffer along public roads and property lines, utilizing existing vegetation where possible. Any new vegetation will include at least one canopy tree for each 40 linear feet of road frontage. Each tree will be a minimum of 8 feet tall at planting and reach a minimum of 40 feet in height at maturity. We conducted a hydrologic and hydraulic study in order to assess the flood risk across the site. This analysis guided our site design, and we have avoided building in areas with the greatest flood risk. In terms of environmental stewardship, we preserved several open areas with no panels, specifically to support pollinator habitat. These areas will be seeded with native and naturalized vegetation and managed to promote biodiversity. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. Next up, Ty Sutton, please.
My name is Alan Winfield Ty Sutton Jr. I'm a principal with the Sutton Shively Appraisals out of Greensboro, North Carolina. I've been appraising for over 30 years. I'm a NC state certified general real estate appraiser. I hold the MAI, SRA, and AIGRS designations, which are the highest commercial, residential, and review designations put out by the Appraisal Institute. The designations require significant additional peer review, educational requirements, and national testing. I'm governed by the Uniform Standard of Appraisal Practice, USPAP, which requires me to be objective, impartial, and independent. I have reviewed the report on the property on Cannon Price Road, St. John's, Pitt County, which was prepared by Richard Kirkland Jr., MAI with Kirkland Appraisals, LLC. The report utilizes 7 methodologies. These include 9 impact studies completed by other appraisers, several articles, 12 broker commentaries, 8 published university studies, interviews with 39 North Carolina tax assessors with solar farms in their communities, 189 nationwide tax assessors, 189 responses, 172 reporting no impact, and 17 no comment. We also use matched pair analysis, also referred to as paired sales, with 20 examples in North Carolina, 77 matched pairs in the southeastern USA, and 93 examples from 28 states. Additionally, we use sale-resale analysis. Based on the data and analysis presented in the report, it is my professional opinion that the solar farm proposed at the subject property will not substantially injure the value of adjoining properties and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. It is noted that some of the positive implications of a solar farm that have been expressed by the people living next to them include protection from future development of residential developments or other more intrusive uses, reduced dews, odor, chemicals from former farming operations, and protection from light pollution at night. The solar farms are quiet and they have no traffic. So that's pretty much what I've got. If you all have any questions, I'll be happy to come back up and answer them.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Sutton. Next is Dan Gerlach.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dan Gerlach. I own and operate a public policy and economic consulting firm known Dan Gerlach LLC, engaged with Hexagon Energy. Previously, I've served over 25 years in economic development in North Carolina, significant portion of that work here in eastern North Carolina, most notably when I worked at the Golden Leaf Foundation up in Rocky Mount. I'm here today to point out two things. One is last week, CNBC rated North Carolina the best state for business in America for the third time in 4 years. Two of the most important considerations are the economy and infrastructure. You've heard earlier from another presenter about Boviet Solar, and in North Carolina, especially in eastern North Carolina, how a lot of these electricity-based industries, and based on the expansion of that use and that demand, have become the #1 source of manufacturing projects that your economic developers are looking at. Secondly, we have seen over time in the last 5 years in North Carolina an explosion in the demand for these large employers paying great wages with heavy capital investment in their demand for electricity. One of the things that this project will do is add to the grid, provide a source of electricity to add to North Carolina's grid as it just becomes really, really tight. And Duke Energy and others are looking to the grid to ways to expand the grid, expand power. That's going to be an important part of how we compete, how we differentiate ourselves among other North Carolina from other southeastern states especially. And it's a high-risk environment for us to compete, but they offer us, from Hexagon Energy and others, a way to address that need. Happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerlach.
Allie Kranz is going to finish us off, sir.
That's all right. Ms. Krantz, your turn.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Board and Commissioner Austin. Thank you for having me. I'm Allie Kranz, the Director of Development and also the lead developer of this project. Over the past 6 months since the community meeting, this project has gone through a lot of meaningful revisions. As Erica explained, sections of panels have been removed, setbacks have been significantly increased, and electrical infrastructure has been moved to minimize the project's impact on local neighbors. While the finer details within the site will continue to evolve, our commitment to large setbacks is firm, and importantly, it's also written into the conditions of the proposed permit. This project has been designed in full conformance with the county's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance, both of which support low-impact sustainable development in rural areas. Solar is just that. It's quiet, it's non-intrusive, and it doesn't strain county services like schools, roads, sewers, etc. I understand that some of the opposition here tonight don't want to see this project and feel that it will change the community, and I want to acknowledge that perspective. But it's also important to note that this is private land. The project will not hurt the community. Solar is quiet, it generates taxes while asking for nothing in return, and it safeguards against more invasive permanent land uses. The families who own this land have cared for it for generations and want to continue doing so. Solar allows them to use their land in a productive way and preserve it for the future. Additionally, because of the nature of this site, which includes substantial setbacks, wetlands, drainage, canals, and flood zones, it will naturally preserve open space and wildlife corridors, all of which will help to maintain the rural character of the area. Lastly, I want to speak to how the project gives back. At the community meeting that I held in January, well ahead of the development process to ensure I can incorporate as much feedback as possible, one of the #1 things I heard was, how will this project benefit those of us who aren't directly involved? And while the project creates jobs and increases tax revenue in the county and hopefully will support the Boviet solar manufacturing facility that we've talked about quite a bit, I understand that those benefits may not immediately impact the people in the area. Because of this, I reached out to Dylan Heyman and the Mayor Billy Ray Jackson of Grifton and started talking to them about how we could partner to do something to benefit the immediate community. Together, we've created a path for the project to fund a significant park project, a space that will serve both St. John residents and the broader Grifton community. The town is very supportive of this effort, and I'm proud that Stokestown Solar can leave behind something tangible and meaningful for the community. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kranz.
Okay.
We may call you back later.
Okay, great, thank you.
Righty. Now, on our list, we have Deborah Cannon Wade. When you come up to the podium, if you'll not only state your name, but also your address where you live, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Cannon Wade. I live at 5733 Highway 903 in Ayden, but I lived in the Stokestown St. John's community for 30 years. I farmed and lived there. And I only have 26 acres that I have signed the lease for. And when I first heard that the solar farm was coming, I was like, oh no. But after reading some research the State University did, and looking at some programs on TV, the other day I'm nervous. The other day they even showed that in Washington State they're doing research to build the panels higher and plant fruit trees and grape trees to keep the sun from blistering the fruit. So I really believe that the solar farm is not detrimental. And the reasons that I changed my mind about being against the farm was the fact that it keeps the land in my family. I'm 71 years old, and I could use the income, I'm gonna be honest with you. Hopefully I can save a lot of it for my family and my children. And the other thing is that, like they said, it generates tax revenue. And I live over in Greene County now, but like when you go out on 102, there's all these huge subdivisions in the county being built everywhere. And I think they're more detrimental to the land. The solar farm, hopefully after the 30 years, the panels can be removed and it can be returned to farmland. I hate to see that a lot of farmland's being lost, but I think that everyone now expects to go in their home and flip the switch and the lights come on. They expect to go in and it's cool, or in the summertime, or hot and warm in the wintertime. And I think it's just part of development. And we're going to need that energy, and I believe solar energy is one of the better ways to go. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And the other thing, there's friends here that I'm friends with that are against the project, and I think they have a right to be, to have their opinions, but they have to respect my right as being a property owner. I worked hard for that 26 acres, and it's my personal choice to decide if I want to put it in a solar farm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe it's be Sheila Porter, is that correct? Parker, okay. Parker. Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Good evening. I came here to ask the board to please say no to this rezoning request. There are many reasons I don't want to live less than 500 feet from a solar farm, but my biggest concern is an increase in flooding. We can look at the top of our county and see the consequences of fast, easy money for a handful of people, and increased in localized and flash flooding caused by stormwater runoff from a large solar farm. A lot of water runs through a lot of big ditches on the farm parcels involved in this proposal. These ditches empty into the Grindle Creek and Contentnia Creek and into the Neuse River in Grifton. We need crops to soak up water. I do not believe that it is compliant with the Pitt County Future Land Use Map and Vision 2045. The goals and policies recommendations in that say that agricultural is an asset, cultural assets, and a natural environment. I believe managing flooding should be a top concern for our board. Measures need to be taken to protect the economic and heritable resource of farmland. Also, the Upper Swift Creek and Fork Swamp Watershed Action Plan says that right up the road on NC 118 is sea level. Flooding is common and extensive. Page 44 of this study calls for stricter county ordinances and to limit floodplain development. Bethel is the large solar farm that I referred to. Bethel has an average elevation in the city limit of 69 feet, while Grifton is only 26. I apologize. I just fear that these solar panels will be thrown up and they'll throw up some big bushes around them and then they're gone. And then the ditches are going to grow up. You know, there's not going to be a farmer to keep the ditches clean. The water's not going to flow. Would be bad for the county, in my opinion, to have solar panels at the top and solar panels at the bottom. When Winterville and Ayden have flooding issues right now and intersections you can't get through in a thunderstorm. Lastly, I'll mention that Grifton's farmland contains many historic Native American artifacts and prehistoric archaeological deposits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Ms. Denise Askew, please.
Hello, I'm Denise Askew, and I am a proud farm owner, and I am in big support of this solar energy project. I am very proud that I'm a third-generation farmer from Pitt County. I grew up in Ayden. Both my parents grew up in Ayden. I had 3 grandparents living in Ayden. As of the past 3 years, I'm living in Chakawinity, but before that, I was in Greenville. So Pitt County and farming are very much in my heart. I have deep roots. My husband managed this farm for me. It's on Hanrahan Road. My mother and I were given this farm when my daddy died, and that was 30 years ago. And my mother and I have co-owned this farm for the past 30 years, and she lived to be 93 and only died a few months ago. And so when Hexagon called me out of the blue, she was in full support of this. She signed on the dotted line, so it's not just me, it's my lineage that supports this as well. In addition to that, my husband managed this farm for me and my mother, and he was born on a farm, and he worked in a farm industry, and he even was the farm manager for BB&T Bank's trust division, all the farms that were in trust for BB&T Bank. He was the farm manager. And it was his dream for many years to have solar energy on my farm. He pursued it. He didn't just talk about it, he actively pursued it. but sadly, he passed away 3.5 years ago, and we had been together for almost 50 years. He would be standing here with me today, I assure you. And it was almost as if when the phone rang and it was Allie with Hexagon calling me about this opportunity, it was like my husband was tapping me on the shoulder, even though he wasn't there, saying, this is what we wanted, it's good for the county, it's good for the environment, it's everything that we believe is right for Pitt County. So I'm very much in favor of this, and my 93-year-old mother was as well.
Ms. Askew?
Yes.
Please accept our condolences for the passing of your mother recently.
Thank you.
For the record, would you please state your address where you live?
I am currently in Chakawinity at 203 Chowan Drive.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I hope I'm trying to read the handwriting here. Glenda Cannon, please.
Thank you.
If you'll
To the
speak
board.
into the microphone, please.
Okay,
and then
thank you to the board for listening tonight.
just state your name and your address, please.
Okay, my name's Glenda Cannon. I live at 7269 Stoatstown, St. John Road, Grifton.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I would like to thank all of y'all for listening, but the purpose of the solar project, which I have signed up my land to be involved in this project, my late husband, Alton Cannon, and I have worked for and cherished many years. We farmed too. I had no clue I was going to lose him in 2018, but when he retired and sold out, we had talked about the solar farm. Anyway, coming all across that, it's going to help everybody for the future. I want to pass it on to all the children, to their nieces, to my nephews. And it's just a win-win situation at the end of the day. I realize that there's so many against it, and I have been ridiculed. I have cried a many a night. But at the end of the day, it's my land. My husband and I worked blood, sweat, and tears and paid for every dime of it. And what I have to pay for the Pitt County taxes and the town taxes of Grifton and Greenville, that's my land at the end of the day. And if I want to sign it away, I feel like that's the best thing in my interest. And I wanted my husband and my son's legacy to live on, so I wouldn't have to sell the land. And that's the reason I've gone with a solar panel. So at the end of the day, that's my provision to do that. That's my rights. And then there's one right down the road from me on Brown Hodges Road. Nobody said one word about that when it went up. My husband and I leased that land for many years. And when that lady sold her land, you can ride right by it right now. It doesn't bother one soul. It's clean, the grass is always cut, there's fences around it. There's somebody always out there working to keep it neat. So, I appreciate you listening to me. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Scott McNeely, please. Is that right? McReady. Sorry.
My name's Scott Moretti. I live at 7176 Stokestown St. John's Road, Ayden, North Carolina. I'm here for the solar panels. I've tended a lot of this land with my uncle for several years. I still work on some of this land right now with the company that I work for at this point in time. I've raised all 3 of my children. I'm raising my grandbaby on some of this land. My boys, my daughter, we've all spent many an hour out there. It's very important to us. The land does stay in the family, and it does generate a more cleaner situation than a lot of the chemicals that go in the land. I put the chemicals in the land when we were farming it ourselves. I know what they are. It ain't always good. We need farming, but a lot of farming's going overseas from here anyway. Eventually, it's all gonna be gone. So I do agree, we do need the farming, but some of those chemicals are very, very harsh, and a lot of times they're year after year after year. So I say it's a good thing, and it's a win-win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ricky Moore, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name's Ricky Moore. I live at 1717 Blueberry Lane, Griffin, North Carolina. Blueberry Lane is a private drive that my brother and I and his daughter and her husband's mom lives on that driveway. It's off of Whaley Road, which is a dead-end road. And it's lined up with houses. I mean, just one right behind another, that whole road. And then when you go out on Brown Hodges Road and turn back east towards Stokestown St. John's Road, there's a whole line of houses before you get to a woods. I noticed some of the pictures were showing the roads, it was showing all these woods. But it didn't show all them houses. I seen a double wide and a single wide out there on Henry Hand Road. Oh yeah, but you ought to ride down Henry Hand Road and look and see how many houses is actually out there. Now let me tell you something. I'm an old country boy. I was never given anything. I grew up farming with my dad. When I got 18, he said, boy, get a public job, because farming is for the small guy like him, a sharecropper. He said it ain't no good place to be. So I went to work at DuPont, and I worked hard many hours, rotating shifts to make money. I didn't ask for nothing. I wasn't given anything. All I got is a 2.5 acre tract of land with a house, a building, and I got a nice garden area, grow some beautiful vegetables and everything out there. We're proud of it. We got a lot of blueberry bushes, hence Blueberry Lane, fig trees, fig bushes. We love it out there. It's peaceful, quiet, good neighbors. I've not spoken to anyone in our community that's going to be impacted by these solar panels that's wanting to see it. They're totally against it. So am I. And I've heard all these, this presentation about how great it's going to be for everybody. Well, it's all about that almighty dollar. But here it is. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. Like I say, they can make it sound as good as they want. Now, I will agree with the landowners. It's their land, and I would want to do whatever I want to do on my land. I don't want anybody telling me what I can't do on my land. But you got to think about the people that live around there. My time is out. I appreciate if y'all would think about what I said. If you would like me to come back up, I'd be glad to.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Gary Evans, is that correct?
My name is Gary Evans. I live at 509 Abbott Farm Road in Ayden. Me and my wife own Evans Farm and Rental, LLC. We do have a tract of land, 92 acres, between Miss Cannon and Miss Askew. This property was inherited to my wife from her grandfather. He purchased it. It's been in their family for 89 years. We do not want to sell that property for development. We do not want to sell it for mining. We want to maintain this property for generations to come. We want to be able to pass it down to generations as we do with some of our other properties. I will say we are concerned of our neighbors. We want to do the right thing, and we just didn't sign up to be signing up. That was not the issue. However, we have to be mindful of, we don't want to force it to be sold. We don't want that. The solar farm generates income for us. It changes a lot of situations financially for my family and business. So, I know it's a hard decision, but the farm's unfortunate. We don't have tobacco quota anymore on the farm, and the income is limited. And if we didn't have the tax deferment from the state, it would be hard. But the real sad part is, if we had to go back and purchase our land today and do bank financing, we couldn't pay for it. There's not enough income. And that's sad. It's really sad. And I used to farm, and I'm in agriculture my whole life. But all we want to do is preserve the property. And we want to pass it generation to generation as we were granted the privilege. And again, we are concerned with our neighbors. We don't want to hurt them by no means. But we do believe the proper buffers with the control of the county can satisfy, hopefully, both parties with some reason. So I want to thank you guys for volunteering and listening to us tonight. Again, it's very. My wife would be here with me tonight. However, she's got a temperature, and we don't want her in here. But she wanted to be here, but she would be standing right here with me tonight. So I do want to say that. But again, thank y'all for your consideration. I know it's not an easy decision, but again, our goal is to pass it down more generations. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Eddie Meeks, please.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Meeks. My residence is 2094 Highway 118, Grifton at Quinterly. I don't really have a dog in this fight because it's not my land. My biggest concern is, with all the development that goes on across the whole country, here, everywhere, we are losing land to produce our own food. Food stability is going to be a problem down the road for us. I get it that this thing can generate $36 million over its life, but money's not everything. Now, one of the other things people have brought up is the flooding aspect. If we start taking away things that can soak up the water in the rain, we can have another event like we had during Floyd. I worked for the Greenville Fire Rescue during Floyd and on Grifton Fire Department during that time. I don't ever want to see that again. That was horrible for a lot of people. So I don't have a dog in this fight. It's not my land. But everything needs to be looked at to make sure that we do not have a situation where we're not able to produce our food, or we're not able to take and mitigate some of this flooding. Look at what's going on in Raleigh and Cary right now. We thought it was limited to the mountains of North Carolina. It's not. It's coming this way again. We all need to be ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Patty Henderson, please.
I think most of what needed to be said has already been said. That being said, my husband is buried on the property that I live on. He was buried there at the end of December. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. If he was alive today, he'd be standing right here. I wouldn't be standing here Today is our wedding anniversary. We would have been married for 44 years. He does not like solar. He would not want the solar there. This hexagon was talking about putting a playground up for people. What about the disabled people? What are they going to do for them? Anything coming along for them? You go out in town, you can hardly find a parking space for disabled people. What about a park? What about a pool for them if they're going to do so much for the handicapped people? They're not going to do anything for them. It's just for regular people. I don't want solar in the back of my house, and I'm sure he wouldn't want it either, especially where he's buried right at the edge of where they're talking about putting it. And we didn't know that this was going to be going on. We got the letter. It was addressed to him after he was buried on our property there. I'm at 1805 East Hanrahan Road, right in the middle of what they want to do and put solar panels. I don't want them there. He wouldn't have wanted them there. My son doesn't want them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Johnny Beddard, please.
Thank you. I have a couple of pictures I want to show also.
All righty.
Johnny Beddard, 7124 Stokesdown, St. John's Road. I live in the area. Unlike 7 of 8 of these landowners, I live here. They don't. And I have some questions and some maps I would like to pass around, if you don't mind.
If you'll pass it to
Okay.
Mr. Rogers.
And the first one, why would Pitt County put a solar farm in a flood-prone area? The first map going around is after Hurricane Floyd. And what happened after Hurricane Floyd, every home north of my house for 2 miles either had water in it or under it. All the fields were flooded, all of them. Everywhere you want to put a solar farm, it was flooded. And I also have map number 2 that I'll pass around. This was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And what happened 2 weeks ago, it wasn't a hurricane, it wasn't a tropical storm, it was just a couple of thunderstorms. And if you look at that map right there, you can see how it flooded. It was just a couple of thunderstorms that did it. And this is the area they want to put solar farms. And then I have a third one also. Why would they put a solar farm on land that has been contaminated by years of sewage, raw sewage put on it? And I have, this map is from the Pitt County Opus. And this part here where you see where the, that circle, that is sewage, raw sewage, and they want to put solar farms right there. And then I would also like to ask, why would he put hazardous solar panels in close proximity to all these homes that Ricky Moore was talking about? These solar panels, from what I can understand, contain cadmium and gallium arsenate, something they haven't mentioned, which are dangerous carcinogens. And I called the Pitt County landfill. They will not accept these solar panels. So if they won't set them in a Pitt County landfill, why would we want them in our front and backyard? And, oh yeah, also, they have a lot of problems with they were out in like 20 years, and they're having problems now. What are they going to do with them? What is the Pitt County, what kind of contingency program do they have to get rid of these solar panels? That I think it's estimated by, let me see who it is, the International Renewable Energy Agency. Okay, just real quick, 78 million tons of waste, hazardous waste from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beddard. I have one other speaker, Lawrence McCall. Did I say your last name correctly?
No, you did not, but I will correct you.
I apologize.
It's quite all right. It's a common misspelling. It's Malol, M-A-L-L-O-L, Malol. I'm Lawrence Malol. And I'm a property owner with my brothers, Leonard Malol and Vincent Malol of Grifton. I live in Wilson, actually. My brother still lives in Pitt County. I own 4 parcels in the area of that community adjacent to where this project's going on. The old homestead house is still there, built in 1895, and we've got our residence still there, my dad's residence, which I'm hoping one of my sons, one works with Navy, the other Air Force, hoping maybe he'll take residence there when he gets out of that base housing. So we'll see how that goes. So holding on to some family land, hopefully to help out this younger generation of Malols. But the land I talk about is Cannon land. It's land that's been in my family for a long time. While I'm adjacent to the site, I'm not slated to have any solar panels placed on my land under the current proposal. But I am here to speak to you in support of this solar farm. As a fellow landowner, I believe strongly in the right of property owners to make responsible decisions about how their land is used, provided those decisions follow the ordinances and regulations and zoning that governs us all, right? So whether it's for horses, tobacco, cattle, swine houses, poultry houses, tree farms, catfish farms, or even airplane landing fields, you'll probably find a little of all of these out there somewhere. The choice should belong to the landowner and not to simply those who live by, right? That's why we have the regulations. I understand that some neighbors have concerns, especially about changing the use of farmland, but it's important to recognize that the land being discussed is privately owned, and the individuals leasing it for solar have every right to pursue a lawful and beneficial use. In fact, solar projects like this can provide families with long-term stability and income while preserving the land beneath them for future agricultural use. My own property has been in my family for over 100 years through my lifetime, my mother's lifetime. I'm going to speed up. I see the clock going here. Maybe you'll give me a few seconds for the pronunciation. But my own property has been in my family for over 100 years through my lifetime, my mother's lifetime, and the majority of my grandfather's life. My grandfather had a vision for how land could serve the future, and he took farmland and developed it into housing. Many of those homes still stand today around Grifton Elementary School, on what became Cannon Boulevard, a street named after him. A number of those homes were built in the 40s and 50s and are still there today. This is a clear example of how thoughtful land use can shape a community. And just as my grandfather was responsible and took a risk to better the community and repurpose the land, I truly believe he would support this notion today. The landowners involved in this project are carrying forward those same principles of vision, responsibility, and long-term benefit. So you'll give me a couple seconds there?
Quickly.
Okay, so I want to wrap it up here and say that I know the planning board staff has worked hard to come up with the recommendation. I appreciate it. I reviewed the work and I agree with that work, and I want to commend the property owners for their reaching out to better develop this community. Thank you.
Mr. Malol?
Yes, sir.
For the record, will you state the address of your home property?
Of the property I own in Pitt County?
Yes.
Okay. 7017 Stokestown St. John's Road. There's also a 0 Stokestown St. John's Road, which is in the back of the property near the septic fields that Mr. Beddard mentioned, the regulated septic fields that Mr. Beddard mentioned. And I also have property off 118 on Providence Lane, 2 parcels there. One is a house there as well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
That is the last speaker we have signed up. I'd still would like to reserve the board to ask any further questions of individuals. Yes, Ms. Stewart.
I would like the people from the solar initially talk. I would like to hear from the solar people to address this young man's concern about this. Are some of the owners concerned about this? I would like to, yes, I guess she's coming.
Yes, ma'am. Did you have any specific questions?
Well, the concerns that I have, which I was here in the flood.
Sure.
And saw what happened down there. So my question is, the concern for those here that are against it in comparison to the people that want it. can you calm their nerves, other people that don't?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So for the stormwater, there's a couple things. The first is solar panels will have a cover crop, as we mentioned, pollinator species planted below and around them. And that actually is more pervious than row crops are. So as for the fear of solar panels adding to impervious surfaces, that's not totally accurate. Of course, the panels themselves are impervious, but during storms, they're stowed away completely vertical so that they're not, just out there during a storm. They wouldn't block the rain from falling and hitting the ground normally. And then the cover crop is actually quite pervious, more so than a row crop is. So that's that piece. Also, we conducted a hydrology and hydraulic study that was done by a third-party consultant. That's a pretty in-depth study into the potential flood hazard of the area and the potential for ponding. And so what they discovered is that there is, as people mentioned here, there is quite a bit of flood hazard in the area, and that's part of why the site plan changed so much. We took the panels out of all of those areas that have the greatest potential for flood hazard. And what that is that's anything with ponding potential, so the potential for just standing water, greater than 1.5 feet. So those are the high-risk areas, and we've completely removed the panels from those areas. So I think it's an absolutely valid concern, and we've taken that into account and designed a plan that accounts for that. And in some ways, in many ways, will actually help the permeability of the soil. For the drainage districts, that was another thing with the flooding that was brought up. I've been in touch with the local drainage district, we have to keep that right-of-way clear so that they can continue to clean out those drainage canals. So we can't block those, we can't obstruct those in any way. The drainage district will continue to be able to access those, clean them, and do whatever regular maintenance they do. And then as for the sewage, Mr. Malal touched on it a little bit. Those are permitted spray fields for one of our landowners' businesses that they have. They've had the permit for those spray fields for themselves for over 20 years. And the permits themselves, the spray fields themselves, have been there much longer. So those are permitted spray fields and don't impact the project viability in any way. Anything else on?
Just a second question. For the people that live near the solar would be, and if we had a flood, would there be any kind of liability for who would be liable for the water that would, if the solar farm was near his house? Who would be responsible? Have you?
If the area floods
and next to it could be the consistency of runoff or some liability for the solar panel. Have you talked about that for the people that, I know the people that want it, but the people that would live near and then I live near it. So if it's run off into my farm and I don't want it, so can you address some of that?
Yes, we would be required by the county, as listed in our conditions, to provide a stormwater management plan. And we technically can't increase the amount of runoff. We legally cannot increase the amount of runoff as a result of the project. So runoff would not, if there was flooding, it would happen because it would happen regardless of what the land use is. We have to account for that. We have to have third-party consultants do studies, and if stormwater basins are required to retain that runoff, we would be doing that. That is something that will be required ahead of any sort of a building permit being issued.
Yes, Ms. Ellis.
So in response to the concern about the hazardous material that's in the solar panels, I believe you probably outlined this in the technical details about the decommissioning. Could you just give a brief overview of what that process is like for closing up shop, basically?
Oh, sure, for decommissioning.
Disposal of the hazardous material.
Yes, ma'am. So House Bill 130 outlines decommissioning requirements across the entire state of North Carolina. And so it's very detailed, and we would have to follow that to a T. What that looks like, the solar panels themselves, it essentially contains, when we say hazardous materials, it's what is in your cell phone, what's in your laptop. So stuff that we have in our homes all the time, that we use all the time. So technically, there are some landfills that will take them. It sounds like Pitt County doesn't want them, and that's fine. There's a very large secondary market for panels. When the panels hit their useful lifetime for Duke Energy, who will be the ultimate owner-operators of this project, the panels still have about 90% efficiency left. That's at year probably 30 and on. And so there's a huge secondary market for solar panels. So most likely what's going to happen is the panels will be sold off to another country. That's typically, it's more developing countries will buy the panels from us. The copper wiring is worth money, so that will get sold and repurposed. The steel racking system that the panels are on will also be, steel has great value, so that will also get reused. So in terms of what would be hazardous, what would be considered hazardous, that is in the panel itself, trace amounts in the panel themselves. And if the county landfill doesn't want them, they would go somewhere else where they can either be disposed of or reused by another secondary buyer.
But as far as the decommissioning, all of that equipment would be going away from the land.
Yes,
right?
sir. Absolutely.
It would be returned to its original placement.
Yeah, exactly. And that is state law. So that isn't just like we can choose whether or not we want to do that. Not only is it in the conditions set by the county, but it's also state law. And it will be Duke Energy owning and operating this project long term. The land itself is only being leased, so these landowners will continue to own the land, but Duke will be operating the project, so Duke will be held to that by the law, by the state law.
While you're there, Ally, you alluded just in your presentation, do you look to see that there will be a partnership between the solar farm and Boviet at some point in time?
Yes, we met with them today and toured their facility, met with the folks there. We're working really hard. We can't guarantee it, but we're working really hard to get those panels to be part of the project. Just so everybody understands, the project itself, construction would not begin for another several years. We still have to go through the Duke interconnection process and their RFP process, their request for proposals. That is about a 2-year process, and then construction would begin after that. There's no guarantee that this project will even get built. We still have quite a few hurdles to overcome. But our efforts over the next couple years will be to try to use the Boviet solar panels, and we're working with their team, speccing the project with their panels, and doing whatever we can to encourage Duke to use them. Ultimately, it will be Duke's decision, but it seems like, why wouldn't they? It's a great opportunity for Duke to support the state and support where they have projects.
And it is, and I see in our presentation, it said that it would be the latter part of 2027 anyway before you'd start.
Yes.
And this is probably none of my business, and you can tell me so, okay? When did the leases start?
The leases started about a year. Oh, when do they start? Is that what you asked? Oh, no, that's absolutely your business. They would start just before construction. So right now we're in what we call the option period, which is when we're doing all the background research. We're coming in front of you all to get permits. We're doing the environmental surveys. We're working with Duke. And then once we have all of the permits obtained, the building permit, et cetera, and construction is ready to commence, that's when the leases would begin on the property.
In your plans and presentation, I would say that the presentation that we received to study prior to this meeting has been well put together, and I commend your team for it. So when I go back and look, and Erica mentioned in her presentation, she did a nice job on the update talking about setbacks and the layouts, okay? And then Ross mentioned the economic value of $3.2 million revenue for the county versus $90,000 over a 30-year period. 1,300 jobs. That's all benefiting the county and our economic value. But I did hear too, and somebody mentioned it in their presentation, about a study from North Carolina State, and I noticed in one of the opposition notes that we received too, that dated back to 2017. Is there a more recent study, or is that what we're looking at?
Oh, no, there's plenty of studies out there. That's the one we use because we're in North Carolina and figure that might have a little more clout around here. But if people would like to see more studies, there are many to choose from.
And in saying that, I would like for the folks to know too, that I was impressed with some of the environmental studies that have gone forward too. And in fact, I learned that you may have found the likelihood of a special species of bats that may be over there, okay, that you don't want to endanger. And being quite honest, if some of you folks had been at our last planning board meeting, you'd have found out that I probably was as disappointed as anybody the way that vote went toward the mega site, because some of those studies we don't get a chance to even have yet until there's a lot of due diligence done otherwise. So that's more to come, okay? But you guys have done a great job, and I was glad to hear Ty say just a little bit ago that according in his professional opinion, that this solar panels do not reduce the property value. So that was refreshing. And then Dan mentioned the fact that North Carolina is listed as a best state to do business in. So there's a lot of advantages. I understand the folks that are in opposition to it, but then other ones, there is a balance that we got to look at too. So, and Ms. Parker, earlier you mentioned something about the drainage and managing flooding. Yeah, as a county, that's something we got to pay more attention to, because you got it in Grifton, but we've got it in the northern part of the county to a full extent also. So we're looking to see what we can do with that, and hopefully we can make some progress there. So thank you, Ma'am Alley. Nice job from your team.
Any other questions?
I would say the same thing. I'm sorry. But, okay, if for God's reason something goes wrong and it doesn't happen in the future, are these people paid up front? I'm just nosy question that he said. Are they paid? What happens if the land, in that area,
if the project doesn't go through? Well, they're paid annually, so it's not like they have to wait until the very end of this to get realize the revenue from the project. They are paid annually. So every year that the project exists, they are paid, and also during the option period, during this period as well. And that's no secret. I think it's our responsibility to show landowners that we're serious about developing a project on their land. If we just put them under option and tied up their land and didn't offer anything in return, I don't think that would be fair. It's a very nominal amount of money, but it shows our seriousness and our commitment to developing the project and ensuring that this goes through. So that's absolutely no secret, that people are compensated if we're going to tie up their land and expect to build on it.
Well, repeat what you just said, that it's a nominal amount.
Yes, the option is very nominal. It essentially covers their taxes, which I think is fair.
Regarding jobs, will you rely on local laborers for the construction? And can you also talk a little about the sorts of employment that will be available after?
Sure. So again, this will be Duke Energy, and they have a list of preferred vendors that they typically choose from, and those are typically North Carolina vendors. That doesn't mean that it has to be one of those folks, but that it tends to be the companies that are based here. For instance, there's a company that does all of the maintenance for their projects, so that's subbed out to another North Carolina-based company. They have teams that live kind of throughout the state, and they go around maintaining, cutting the grass, doing perimeter walks, etc. So that's for the actual operation and maintenance of the project. As for the construction, you name it in the construction industry and it's required. So it's electricians, it's folks to build roads, it's folks to pour concrete on, not very much concrete, it's the slabs that are under some of the equipment, like the inverters and stuff. But like you need concrete people, you need folks to grade the land. I mean, everything you could imagine in construction it would be required on a solar project. And so that is, I can't say, I don't know for sure who Duke is using, but it is local companies because that makes the most sense. They're not, flying in labor from elsewhere. They're using labor locally. It cuts down on cost and makes sense.
Any other questions from the board?
I have one more question, I think probably for Ben. The property owners who are interested in pursuing this with their own land?
Yes, ma'am.
Are those all working farms?
That I don't know. It's all agriculturally zoned, agriculturally used on our land, on our existing land use map. I don't know. We try to show in the pictures. It's such a large area, we couldn't capture everything, obviously. A lot of them are in working farmland. Allie may actually be able to answer that better than me, but just driving around the area, a lot of it is. I'm not sure what percent or otherwise, though.
Thank you.
Ms. That's okay, thank you. Ms. Kranz, do you have that information?
Yes, it's a mix of farms that are currently being farmed silviculture, so areas that are being preserved for timber, and then there are some that are not used for any of those. The septic spray fields are some of them, and then others are not used for anything. Maybe they have an older home on them, or a portion of the land is being used as a home and would continue to be used as such. So it's a mix, to be honest.
Thank you.
Great.
Board, any other questions? It's time to entertain a motion. Oh, it'll be on page 155.
Yeah, and we could put staff's recommendation on the board, on the screens as well. Otherwise, in the packet, there's also kind of a working guidebook that may assist with making the recommendation. which way the
155 and
board goes.
156.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that the board recommends approval of the request by Hexagon Development, seeing as this proposed rezoning request is consistent with the envisioned Pitt County 2045 comprehensive land use plan, and it is reasonable because the request is for a conditional zoning district.
And if I may clarify, is that with the conditions as listed
With
and
the
presented?
conditions as listed, most
Okay.
assuredly. Yes, sir.
All right, just want to clarify, thank you.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Mr.
Because
Hardy?
there is a list of them.
Yes, sir.
So
And
Mr.
the
Hardy
applicant
has
does have to
seconded.
sign to that.
So we have a motion and a second on a motion of approval of this request of conditional zoning. Any further discussion on this particular motion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your left hand.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And if I may remind the board and the public, this is just a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
That's
The
correct.
board will hold a public hearing. You'll get notices in the mail if you got one the first go-round for the official public hearing on Monday, August 18th at 6 o'clock.
Same place, same time.
One step of many. Sure. You don't feel well. I'm sorry. Yeah. Wait until it clears.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest we have a moment or two for the auditorium to clear out, and we'll resume shortly.
I totally agree.
All right, thank you.
If you like.
You need to talk to our director about that.
What's that? Order, please. Mr. Gooby, we now have a zoning request from Sawyer's Property Management Group. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The request is from Sawyer's Property Management Group, LLC. The request is to rezone 13.72 acres of their property. It's parcel number 84426. It's located on the western side of Quarry Road. This is north of its intersection with Worthington Road. And the request is to go from rural residential to general commercial conditional district to allow a couple of uses, warehouse self-storage, contractors no outside storage, and boat and RV parking and storage, which we would consider under our ordinance to be oversized vehicle parking commercial. You can see the site here. It is just to the south of Greenville and just east of Winterville. This is a picture of the site itself. Another picture of the site looking from Quarry Road. Just another picture towards the back of the site itself. This is looking on Quarry Road heading back into Greenville. So this would be going north. And then this would be heading south towards Worthington Road and Boydley Park. Sawyer's Fun Park is located on the site, or next to the site. It's not on the same parcel, but it is adjacent to it, and it's owned by the same group. These are some houses that are adjacent to it up along Quarry Road. There is a large subdivision, Quarry Ridge, that's located just to the north of the site. These are houses in Quarry Ridge that are directly adjacent to the site itself. There's also several other subdivisions. This one is Rosewood subdivision. There's also Blackwood subdivision. These are on the other side of Quarry Road from the site itself. And then there's also Vicksburg, which is directly across from this property. There's also a church just to the north on Quarry Road. It's Faith Assembly Church. And then, as I mentioned, Boydley Park is further to the south at the intersection with Quarry and Worthington Road. So you see the site highlighted here in yellow. It is in sort of a donut hole of the city jurisdiction and also the town of Winterville. This is just kind of a hole that's left over from between Boydley Park, which is in the city's jurisdiction, and then to the north, the city of Greenville, and again, To the east, to the west of the property that's behind this, which is also owned by Mr. Sawyer, is the town of Winterville jurisdiction. What you see in terms of existing land use, it's primarily residential. We don't have the existing land use delineated for the towns and for the city, but as I mentioned, it is mostly residential to the north and west of the site and also to the east. And then just to the south, you see in the red is the commercial for the Sawyer's Fun Park as well as a cheerleading facility. The Envision Pitt County Land Use Plan designates it as suburban residential. This designation does contain primarily single-family detached homes in neighborhoods with interconnected streets. Non-residential uses that are allowed in this should be located with frontage and access to a major highway or secondary road at major intersections or in proximity to similar uses with spatial separation or buffers between other incompatible uses. That type of non-residential development, the plan also states it should be designed in what we call a context-sensitive manner. In other words, it should sort of blend in with the area and should be considered on a case-by-case basis in a conditional zoning district, which again is what this request is tonight. Suburban residential is near existing residential and commercial development and in areas that are experiencing significant growth within the county. Permitted uses in that area would include single-family detached homes, manufactured homes, duplexes, some agriculture, agribusiness, limited multifamily, commercial, office, light industrial, and public institutional uses. And when you look at our land use map, the suburban residential is sort of the fringe around the more urban Greenville area. So the areas that are kind of just outside of Greenville are typically suburban residential. Then you move into more rural residential and then agricultural as you get further out into the county. Typically, utilities would be on-site septic systems with community water service. Public sewer may be available in these areas when they're with voluntary annexation. And density would generally vary from 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre depending on sewer availability. Our land use plan does kind of address some things in terms of the context sensitive and site design for commercial uses. Land use policy 4 is to encourage quality development and reduce impacts on existing uses. And that recommendation is to enhance site design for commercial uses by utilizing conditional zoning to allow for that context-sensitive commercial development in the residential and rural areas. Land use policy 6 also states to maintain Pitt County's rural character. Again, utilize that conditional zoning process to encourage context-sensitive design of commercial land uses that preserve elements of rural character. And should consider conditions during this process that reduce visual impact, noise, traffic, or safety concerns, and or reduce environmental impacts of new developments. And some of these conditions can include limitations to the size of buildings or the types of uses allowed, additional buffering requirements or setbacks, transportation improvements or other infrastructure requirements, things like additional access points or pedestrian connections, preservation of unique aspects of the site, such as environmental features, frontage requirements for things like landscaping or additional setbacks, and then details related to parking. So the location or amount or design, and the location of things like the trash and service areas, building design, or lighting plans. And the plan also specifies some things in terms of new commercial buildings and sites and how to design those. Things like frontage treatments, things again like landscaping, setbacks, fencing, parking, the location and design and the amount of the parking, landscape plantings and buffers and tree save areas, as well as location of infrastructure such as access points, service areas, and stormwater retention areas, and the design of the buildings themselves to help them blend into the existing built environment through architectural features, building materials, or to better reflect the scale of historical building patterns. So moving into the zoning, you see the site is zoned rural residential. Again, to the west and the north is the city of Greenville, so it would fall under their zoning for those properties. And just to note, there is a small commercial node or a small commercial property just to the south at Worthington Road, and then when you move over towards the crossroads there at County Home, you have some commercial where there's a landscaping, and then also on the corner at the crossroads there's a store and some other commercial activities out there. The request, again, is to go to general commercial conditional district. General commercial is primarily intended to accommodate a range of retail, service, office, limited wholesale, and moderate density multifamily residential uses in areas that have access to major thoroughfares and necessary utilities to support such development. And the conditional zoning, again, allows for the approval of a specific use with reasonable conditions to ensure compatibility with the neighboring properties. And again, the proposed uses that you're considering tonight would be warehouse self-storage or mini storage, contractors, no outside storage, and oversized vehicle parking commercial. Now, of those uses, the only one that we have specific development standards for in our ordinance is for the oversized vehicle parking. So there are some requirements they'll have to meet as well for that. There's a minimum 50-foot use separation from any adjoining residentially zoned property, as well as a minimum 100 feet from any church, school, or public institution. There's a minimum area of 2 acres. Screening and fencing is required around the site. The noises shall not disrupt adjacent land uses, so if there's any vehicles that are parked there, they're not to remain idling or generate any noise between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Any parking services and driveways are required to be graded and stabilized, and there are certain activities that are prohibited, such as storage of wrecked or inoperable vehicles and junk materials, fuel sales, and automotive repair services. So just walk through the site plan that was submitted. This is the rezoning area here that you see outlined in red. They are proposing an office building up at the front of the site that will front Quarry Road. And that building is actually almost 300 feet back. So given the scale of the size, it's hard to picture just how far back the use will be. But based off this plan, it would be at least about 280 feet for the building. There's also about a dozen storage unit buildings that are proposed, as well as parking. The boat and RV parking is proposed to be towards the back of the site, and that will conform with our requirements that I just went through with the ordinance. They're also proposing fencing around the entire perimeter of the site, as well as around the stormwater pond that's in the back. There's a sanitary sewer easement, so they'll have to stay out of that easement anyways for the setbacks along that northern property line. And then also there's a riparian buffer, which also imposes another 50 feet on each side of the stream that they'll have to basically stay out of and keep as maintained as natural as possible. Then also they're proposing some additional vegetation here on the plan that you see along the northern side and along the front. In your packets, in your staff report, there are some additional conditions that we're proposing as staff. Since we sent out that packet, they've also proposed several other additional conditions, which you should have a copy of in front of you as well. And some of that includes some more screening or some more vegetation that'll be along the fenced-in areas that'll be on the outside of the fence to try to kind of help beautify that area as well. Staff does find that the request is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, again, given its designation of suburban residential. This designation does allow for limited commercial land uses considered on a case-by-case basis as a conditional district rezoning. In addition, the land use plan recommendations also encourage utilizing conditional zoning and context-sensitive design for commercial land uses in residential and rural areas. We find that the request is reasonable because the proposed use will not generate a significant amount of traffic or noise. In our experience, many storages just don't generate traffic or much noise. And the applicant is proposing to utilize context-sensitive design elements and building materials that will reduce visual impacts of the proposed uses from neighboring residential land uses. So with that, staff does recommend approval. We do have a number of additional conditions that we're proposing. First is no zoning compliance permit shall be issued until a final site plan prepared in accordance with the zoning ordinance is submitted to our office for review and approval. Landscaping plan will also be required with that. And the property should be screened from any adjacent residential uses and public road rights-of-way by a 10-foot wide landscape buffer in accordance with the zoning ordinance. Any required parking spaces, access drives, and loading areas shall be paved and maintained with concrete, asphalt, or similar material. We'll also, soil erosion and sedimentation control plan will be required for any land disturbance that results, or any development that results in land disturbance over 1 acre. The site will also have to comply with the Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance for nutrient control. And loading and peak flow calculations should be reviewed and approved prior to any improvements involving more than 1/2 acre. The site will have to comply with any emergency management requirements for fire protection. And one of the things that we also are proposing, kind of based off the last mini storage that this board heard, there were several conditions that were put on for things like access for first responders. We've also included many of those in these proposed conditions as well. So not only complying with the emergency management requirements, but they'll also have to provide access to all emergency responders. They'll have to obtain all required permits from Pitt County inspections to occupy the structures and comply with any applicable environmental health requirements for wastewater disposal. Obtain the driveway permit from NCDOT and comply with all requirements for access to the subject property. Any buildings and fencing that's visible from public rights-of-way and adjacent residences shall employ context-sensitive design and utilize architectural features such as brick facades, pitched roofs, et cetera, that will reduce the visual impact from the surrounding residential land uses. And you'll see with the additional conditions they proposed, they've gone into a little more detail on that we're also adding as well. The contractor no outside storage use should only be allowed in the proposed office building, so the one up at the front, as shown on the site plan, and any of the storage units themselves should only be used for general storage, so they wouldn't be operating a business necessarily out of the storage units themselves that would be in that office space up front. Oversized vehicle parking shall meet all requirements of section VV of the Pitt County zoning ordinance, and spaces on the plan will need to be clearly designated as the oversized vehicle parking. Such parking shall also be limited only to trailered boats, campers, and recreational vehicles. So when you look at the definition of oversized vehicles in our ordinance, it also includes things like semi-trailer parking and large box trucks and things of that nature. So it would only be limited to boats, campers, and RVs. They wouldn't be allowed to do any of the other large oversized vehicle parking. Security cameras must be installed at the facility. And then all existing vegetation adjacent to Quarry Ridge subdivision shall remain in its natural state. So they would have to maintain that full buffer as it is currently. And then the additional conditions that were proposed by the applicant, all exterior lighting shall comply with the requirements of the Pitt County zoning ordinance and shall be full cutoff or shielded fixtures directed downward to prevent glare onto adjacent properties and roadways. Any pole-mounted lighting shall not exceed 20 feet in height and shall be located only where necessary for safety and security, such as in drive aisles and access points. The perimeter of the mini storage facility shall be enclosed with a fence to ensure security while maintaining a visually appealing appearance consistent with the rural residential character of the surrounding area. The fence adjacent to Quarry Road and adjacent residential properties shall be constructed of powder-coated black aluminum with vertical pickets. Fence height shall be a minimum of 6 feet and a maximum of 8 feet unless otherwise required by local code. Landscaping such as shrubs or evergreens shall be installed along the exterior of the fence line where it faces public streets and adjacent residential properties. The exterior facades of all buildings on the site shall be designed to maintain a rural and residential compatible appearance consistent with the intent of the county land use plan. Facades visible from Quarry Road shall incorporate a combination of architectural materials such as brick, stone veneer, fiber cement siding, painted masonry, glass storefront systems, or similar high-quality finishes. Metal wall panels shall not be used as the primary visible exterior finish visible from Quarry Road. And then large flat walls that are facing Quarry Road shall be visually broken up through the use of architectural features such as articulated wall planes, pilasters, trim details, changes in material or color, or similar design elements at regular intervals, a minimum every 30 feet. Earth tone or neutral color palettes shall be used for building exteriors to blend with the surrounding rural landscape. And mechanical equipment, including HVAC units, shall be fully screened from view from adjacent roadways or residential properties using architectural elements or fencing that is consistent with the primary building materials. So with that, Mr. Chair, we'd like to now entertain any public comments. The planning board will then make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who will also hold a public hearing on August 18th. With that, we'd like to open up for public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Gooby. At this time, I would like to open up public comment period. And first on deck, we have Mr. Anderson once again.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Scott Anderson, 332 Westmeath Drive, Winterville, North Carolina. I am a civil engineer and a owner of ARC Consulting Group located here in Greenville, North Carolina. We've been working with Mr. Sawyer for several years now on a potential development options for his property located on Quarry Road. We originally brought a request back to this board back in 2022 for the expansion of Sawyer's Fun Park by adding go-karts and mini golf. Mr. Sawyer ultimately withdrew that request based on concerns expressed by neighbors. Those concerns were primarily related to increased traffic on Quarry Road, lights, and noise. Mr. Sawyer went back to the drawing board, and we reevaluated several options for the development of his property based on concerns that were expressed, which led us to the request that's before you tonight. The decision to pursue this request was based primarily on the fact that a self-storage facility is a very low traffic generator, creates very little noise, and the lighting can be contained within the property. Again, this was based on feedback that we received from the neighbors. We had several meetings over the last year with the neighbors, and through the process we have tried to incorporate their feedback and come up with a plan that meets Mr. Sawyer's goals for development of the property while also being sensitive to the concerns of the neighbors. A couple things I wanted to point out. We're maintaining a 100-foot buffer from any residential property and maintaining 200-foot buffer from Quarry Road. And I'll point out that the acreage of the rezoning request that came to you back in 2022 was 31.9 acres. This request is only 13.7 acres, so we've made a significant reduction in that rezoning area. Again, we believe this request is in conformance with the land use plan, and we've also added many conditions that I won't reread all those to you, but again, those conditions make sure that we've provided adequate landscaping to screen the neighbors. We've added exterior lighting constraints to make sure that we don't bleed light onto the adjacent properties. And we've added several architectural features and requirements to make sure that the buildings that are built are sensitive to the surrounding community. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Does the board have any immediate questions at this time of Mr. Anderson? We reserve the right to call you back.
Great, thank you.
May I have Jerry McRoy, please? Once again.
Before you start my 3 minutes,
All right.
I'd like to say, first time I've been here in a while, and I really like the improvements with the blinds, this little trick here, and the video cameras over there. That should enhance the meetings and the recordings that are made of these meetings.
Again, remind everybody, if you'll state your name and the address at which you live. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jerry McRoy. I'm in Quarry Ridge subdivision. If you need an exact address, it's 1017 Vanguard Drive. Well, like a well-thrown boomerang, we're back where we started several years ago. I realize you folks are often put into uncomfortable positions by rendering decisions that will either make one party or the other upset. In the case of Sawyer's Property Management, they are in the uncomfortable position of having purchased land which was not zoned for their future plans, and they are now trying to mitigate their original mistake. We were here several years ago when Sawyer's was proposing an outdoor entertainment complex, which Scott just alluded to, which was not a use congruent with the land he had purchased. After multiple visits here, our local communities were able to sufficiently present our opposition to this proposal. The result was a 7-0 denial of Mr. Sawyer's proposal. When the consideration of the proposal moved to the Board of Commissioners, Sawyer's pulled their item from the agenda a mere 2 hours before the meeting. The local community opposition group was relieved, but not fooled. A year or so later, our local community learned that Sawyer's had been working through the City of Greenville and an attorneys group in Raleigh to amend a City of Greenville ordinance, a text amendment, to make changes favorable to them. Sneaky backdoor approach. The intent was to change the original ordinance language to allow Sawyer's proposed entertainment complex proposal to move forward, and then ask the city of Greenville to annex them. They weren't in the city of Greenville at that point. Still aren't. This proposal resulted in a 4-2 decision by the city's planning board to deny Sawyer's. The proposal then went to the full City of Greenville Council. After repeated visits by our community opposition group, the City Council voted 6-0 to deny the Sawyer's proposal. Folks, as a resident of Pitt County and Greenville City, I ask that tonight you once and for all shut down the Sawyer's assault on our local community and put this puppy to bed. Being a citizen should not require a constant battle to keep our community peaceful. I am retired. I don't need another job to battle repeated threats and infringements on my and my neighbors' peace and quiet. Our road has one and only one commercial area, which never should have been allowed in the first place. Sawyer's should be happy with what they have, been allowed to build the 2 businesses already on rural residential land. Please convince Sawyer's by your actions tonight to take their business aspirations somewhere where they are acceptable. Please stop this madness. Thank you.
Next up, we have Louise McCroy.
Hello, my name is Louise McRoy. I live at 1017 Vanguard Drive in Winterville. Well, here we go again. Since 2022, Sawyer's Property Management has been trying to push their agenda on the residents of Quarry Road. 3 times the residents have spoken up against their agendas. Once Pitt County Planning Board in 2022, once Pitt County Board of Commissioners in 2022, once Greenville Planning and Zoning Commission 2023. And now here we are again to tell you we the residents do not want Sawyer's Property Management's latest proposal either. At all the previous meetings with those who were elected to hear and protect the voices of the residents, I'm happy to say they did their jobs and sided with the residents. When this business purchased their property, they should have made their intentions known at that time instead of trying to go through a back door. I can't speak for everyone, but I can say I don't trust them. The timing of this proposal is a good example. Wouldn't it have been more transparent to request a rezoning request when it was not peak vacation time and families are busy with their children's summer's activities? Many of the residents have told me they wanted to be here tonight, but because of family obligations could not attend. You have many of their letters and emails from them. Not to mention, Quarry Road is currently closed for road construction. The residents on one end of Quarry Road don't know this is happening on their road. I remember at one of their meetings with the residents, we were asked if we would rather see Section 8 housing versus what he was proposing. What a racist thing to ask. Sounds like maybe the shoe is on the other foot, not to mention it sounded a lot like a threat. This business is putting their wants above the needs of the residents. At their last meeting with the residents, to try to convince us to go with their latest proposal, several residents, myself included, said we would not go to his meeting as a silent protest. They didn't get the message again, so here we are. Quarry Road is a residential road, not a commercial road. Please don't change that. A warehouse, contractors, boat, RV park and storage. Who's going to tell a contractor they can't put their equipment outside? Who's going to stop self-storage units from selling out of them? Who can go on with the potential? I could go on with potential problems I foresee happening right in our own backyards. This will require a lot of outside lights. What an eyesore this will become. Sawyer's Property Management has good ideas, but they chose the wrong location for their ideas. I wish they would quit harassing the residents and be happy with what they've got or find another suitable location. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Hugh Bryan, please.
My name is Hugh Bryan. I live at 816 Van Gurt Drive. Chairman Austin and members of the Planning Board, I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you tonight. My comments will be brief. I serve as the president of the Corey Ridge Homeowners Association. And we have met, the board has met and discussed this many times, as the McCroys have mentioned, and it keeps coming up. Based on a decision years ago to allow construction of the original commercial buildings there on Corey Road, and then a second commercial enterprise, this raises concerns on the part of the neighbors that once started, commercial operations just continue to metastasize. And I think that's been visible there. Corey Road is a residential area with 2 churches and the rest of it being residential. Mr. Sawyer's Enterprises are the only commercial enterprises there, and that creates issues with the surrounding neighborhoods in the form of traffic, noise, security, lighting, and so forth. The Board of Directors of Corey Ridge unanimously opposes the rezoning request and asks that you deny it. I thank you for your time.
Mary Lou Stewart, please.
I am Glenn Stewart. My wife asked me to speak first, and if I don't do a good job, she's going to speak after me. Like I said, my name is Glenn Stewart. I live at 5128 Corey Road, Winterville. I live beside the entrance to Sawyer's Fun Park. My house was built in 1986. My neighbor's house was built in 2003. Sawyer built his first building behind my neighbor's house in 2003, and he built it 100 feet behind it. My house and my neighbor's house front on Corey Road, and Sawyer's buildings are behind our homes. About 2013, I noticed utility construction near my property. My wife and I went to see Sawyer. We asked him questions about that construction, such as, will a road be built beside our house? He told us a road would never be built beside our house. About 2015, Sawyer built a second building. And a few years later, there was more construction that included the road that Sawyer told us would never be beside our house. No comments to us, no explanations, no information meetings, no letter from the planning board. They just built the road. It was placed about 100 feet from my bedroom window. Now, I'm certain that Mr. Sawyer had good plans for his business success. But I have worked hard and saved in order to have a home in a pleasant area. And there's hundreds of people that have done that. So I ask you, commissioners, whose dreams do you allow to come true? Now, I've traveled Corey Road for over 50 years. The thing that is evident to me is that Corey Road has historically been residential. And that has drawn home buyers to homes on Corey Road. Whereas commercial property or commercial locations are being located on Old Tar Road or Arlington County Home Road. I think Sawyer probably had a good business plan, but he bought land on the wrong road. I'm certain that all homeowners adjacent to or near this proposed storage area are worried about their property values decreasing if you commissioners allow Sawyer to build this storage area on our road. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Stewart, did he do a good enough job?
No, he did an excellent job. My name is Mary Lou Stewart, and I live at 5128 Corey Road. And we have been doing that, we've done this in the past where we have pleaded to please keep Corey Road residential. There is a church, Covenant Church, which I go to on the corner of Corey and Fire Tower. There is another church about halfway down Corey Road, and the rest are homes, individual residential homes. There are a lot of neighborhoods, beautiful neighborhoods. You saw a picture of some of the homes. Then there are individual homes like ours. And like my husband said, when we bought our house, the realtor told us there would never be anything behind our home. Well, there is Sawyer's Fun Park behind our home, and I don't really know how that happened. Just like I don't know about the road, which has street lights that shine into our bedroom window and into our sunroom. So, you know, we feel like we were a little bit misled by all of that. And now he wants to put a storage building. Have you seen the storage buildings around Greenville? There's nothing pleasant. There's nothing residential about them. I don't care how you dress them up. It's like somebody said a while ago. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And that's how it is with storage buildings. And if there are people who have boats in there and RVs in there, okay, and contractors, there is no time limit on this. And the way you get in and out is with a code. And the people who want in and out will use the code. There's going to be noise. There might be people who have boats over there that want to go fishing at 3 a.m. in the morning, and they're going to be pulling them out and going right by our house. There's going to be contractors. You don't tell a contractor when he can come and get his equipment or his, you know, whatever he needs for the day. And so they'll be coming in. And RVs, it worries me a little bit because about 3 weeks ago, there was a big RV that sat in the parking lot on beside my neighbor, between my neighbor and the park, and that sat there for 2 days and a night, and someone stayed in it overnight. And then the next day, they filled it up from the faucet at the building with a hose. They took the water. They all left. Now, you know, there's going to be RVs in this storage building. What's to say that nobody might want to stay over there if they don't have a home? It's just scary. Is what it is. And other than that, I guess that's probably all I have to add to what my husband said. So we appreciate your time. We thank you very much. And one question is, wherever you live, would you like someone to put a storage building next to your home? And that's what we're looking at. Especially, like my husband said, when that property was purchased, it was residential. Why buy it? Put homes on it. Build individual homes on it. Sell lots. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Now we have up is Mike Kerner, please.
I'm Mike Kerner. I live at 968 Van Gert. I'm here because I've got 3 little girls. We've been fighting this for 3 years now, going back even further than that during COVID. I mean, it's been well documented. He had over 40 COVID citations because he doesn't care what you guys tell him or what the city tells him or what the police tell him. He's got a long-standing history of doing what he wants. And I'm just here, all my neighbors, they've already said everything that needs to be said. We've been saying it for 3 years. But like I said, I have 3 daughters. They drive me up the wall sometimes. This reminds me of some of my daughters. Come to the nanny, ask for a cookie, the nanny says no. Have a temper tantrum, go to mom, no cookie. Go to dad, no cookie. Parenting went all around, success, we did the right thing, but we left the stupid cookie on the counter overnight. The next morning, the daughter comes out and says, I noticed the cookie's still sitting there. I'm not gonna eat it today. I just wanna hold it in my hand, maybe sniff it a little bit, and then I'll put it back on the counter. This is where we are at right now. It started with a small amusement park. It stayed a small amusement park. It was a variation of a small amusement park. What's to say that we're not here in a year again trying to fight a go-kart track or a water slide or all the same stuff we've already been fighting for 3 years? This is ultimately becoming I'm up here for my daughters to teach them that you don't stand down to bullies, and he is a bully. That is what we were dealing with. He has been a bully for 3 years. The only valid reason he has for this is I bought this property and I need something to do with it. There is no reason he can't buy any of the commercial property in all of Greenville or all of Pitt County and do exactly what he wants to do. There is no reason for it to be in our neighborhood, and we're all very tired of it. It's been a 3-year process, but just because we're tired of it doesn't mean we're going away on this one. Thank you.
Caitlin Kerner, please.
Yes, my name is Caitlin Kerner, and I live at 968 Vanguard Drive. My property is one of the ones that adjacent directly with this property. If I look out my back fence, it looks right at this property. I read the Envision Pitt County 2045 comprehensive plan, and it does say we are suburban residential land, not commercial. There is no commercial really anywhere near where our land is supposed to be. The City of Greenville's Horizon 2026 plan, which I addressed when we had fought this battle with them, also allocates our area for residential development. Our roads and infrastructure are meant for residential use. Quarry Road is a residential road where families and children cross daily. Pitt County schools exit and load on that same street, and I even use it for sports utilities of cross-country practices. Already, as I'm sure if you've gone that way, they're putting in a roundabout at the end of our road this entire summer to combat the burden of the already traffic that is accumulating on Quarry Road and Worthington. Would the county be prepared to invest even more funding to road investment to increase the commercial use of this setting of this land? Or are we just going to encourage for commercial use to buy up all this residential land that you have deemed on your own documents, then to come and fight for them to be all turned commercial years later? We're kind of tired of it. I know we've addressed this, flooding. It is everywhere on the news recently, and it is becoming a big concern. They talked about a rainwater retention pond, which is even in their pictures, and in one of their sessions, I asked, where is that pond gonna go? Where is all that rainwater gonna go? And they said they're gonna pipe it into the ditch behind my house. There's a very small drainage ditch that then runs into the Fork Swamp, which is behind us. According to the Pitt County 2012 Upper Swift Creek and Fork Swamp Watershed Plan, this is an increased water area for potential increase in flooding zone, including part of the Quarry Ridge subdivision and adjacent areas. Why are we going to increase concrete land that would be then pumped into an already high-risk flood zone? It is said, even in the statement, that Worthington Road under the Fork Swamp is regularly overtopped during terrible storms such as hurricanes. You can look that up yourself. For this reason, the back of our houses are considered part of the strategic conservation parcels to help alleviate the water burden to this area and residential area. Will the county allocate more funds to our funding concern for the flooding concerns? Thank you very much.
Mr. Sawyer, please.
Good afternoon or evening, I don't even know. Good evening. I'm TJ Sawyer, owner of Sawyer's Property Management Group. I live at 4455 Galway Drive and would like to address some of the issues that are being talked about today. First of all, my wife just texted me. The bottom line is they don't want anything at that property. We have had multiple meetings, and I gave them suggestions over townhomes. They didn't want that. I gave them the storage units, and they thought that that was the better option of all the developments that I would like to do. The last meeting that we had, we actually had a woman say, I don't want anything there. I wanted to keep it as the tree farm. They use it as their personal playground, walking their dogs, walking across to Boyd Lee. They do exercises out there. They've also used to do bonfires out there where they would dump all their shrubberies out there and have a big hoorah. We actually stopped that. As far as Mr. Stewart, he said his house was built in 1986, but he moved there in 2013. Same way with Miss Elizabeth. Jerry, you bought your house in 2018. I already had 2 businesses there at that time. So when they purchased their homes, the commercial was already started. I built that building in '03. Miss Elizabeth's house was not even built at that time. I tried to purchase that land, and the lady that owned it was Vic Corey's sister. She said she wanted to build a house. She did, and then she asked me to buy the house. Miss Elizabeth then bought it, knowing there was commercial property right behind her house in 2013. So with that being all said, it doesn't matter what I try to do out there. I'm not trying to bully. We've actually had several meetings, and we've listened to them, and that's the reason we came up with the storage unit. No noise, no lights, or the light is very controlled, and there's no traffic. With the expansion of Worthington with the neighborhoods and the 2 schools, that's the traffic that we're starting to see, which is hence the reason for the roundabout at Worthington and Corey, not because of Sawyer's Fun Park or anything that I'm trying to do. It's the expansion of Worthington and all the neighborhoods that are going on there now today. So as for the RV that was parked, that was a traveling coach that came from across the country to train some of the kids at the cheer gym. So that was a one-off. That's not a permanent thing. It was a coach coming in and just staying 2 nights and going. I yield my time. Thank you.
Sir, do we get time to rebut what he said?
No, sir. Carlos White, please.
How's it going? I'm Carlos White, 709 Van Gert in Corey Ridge. Like everybody said, this, in my opinion, and I don't know Mr. Sawyer from a can of paint, but I do know the bait and switch. Get it commercially zoned for right now, low acres, 13, right? And then come back next year or something. Oh, it's already commercially zoned, so why can't we do this, right? And then the other commercial zone that's down there on the roundabout, it's like got some little lawnmowers over there and something like that. So when they pointed out the commercially zoned that's there, that's like little lawnmowers and abandoned. I don't know if it's abandoned or not. But, and then over there by Mr. Charlie's, toward, I think out of church or something like that's over there. But back to what everybody was saying, we already been here before. It got denied through you guys, well, I don't know who was here at the time, but it got denied, and then right before the commission supposed to, they pulled it. Then they sent it to Greenville, where the planning and zoning shot it down. Then it went to city council, got shot down again. So now he's coming back. Yes, it's his land, but also it's our land also. And the quality of life will be affected because you got diesel engines and they idle, and you're gonna hear it. So when you say low impact and low and everything, yeah, you're gonna hear that stuff. It's not about nobody don't want him to do anything on his land. It's just that he's doing things that are affecting the quality of life on his land. And also, the bait and switch, I feel like, is in play right now. 13 acres of commercial property this year. 2 years from now, the rest of it be commercial. Then he can come right on back with his fun park that he was trying to do the first time. So with that being said, as far as people going on his land with bonfires and stuff like that, that can be anybody. You can't necessarily say they, you know, you can't say us. And this gentleman that got the road right beside, if you go right beside that guy's house, it's a road. So now you got these RVs pulling up at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, because it's 10 to whatever it was, idling, and that's the quality of life. And these are older people, and I just think he just need to rethink what he's trying to do with it. Unfortunately, he bought some land that is in an area where it's just residential, and it's a bunch of kids. He's saying that he contributed that to the expansion of the neighborhoods over there, but it's kids over there, and these kids keep coming across the street, and it's just going to be a disaster when you got these things coming through there. And I just feel like they said, we're just going to be here every other year whenever a new commission gets a commission or something like that, trying to battle this thing right here, and it just need to just be done with it. I want him to thrive. I'm a business owner. I want him to thrive as a business owner, but at the same time, I just feel like this particular property that he has and what he's trying to do with it in this neighborhood is just not conducive to how we're trying to have our quality of life. Thank y'all.
Mr. White, for the record, I don't think I got your address.
709.
Van Gurt?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, that is the last speaker. I'd like to go ahead and close the public comment period. Board, do you have any questions to ask of any of the speakers or the people representing Sawyers?
I did have one question, Mr. Chairman, and maybe you can answer this, or if not, then Mr. Sawyer. I know in the past when we've had discussions about this type of use for storage facility before, we always mentioned hours of operation. And I noticed that was a concern with some of the other landowners in that area. Did they propose 24 hours, or did they have certain hours of operation?
They have not proposed any hours of operation. We had talked with them about that, and they were reluctant just because of the fact of not wanting to restrict folks from coming in, getting their boat or their RV and leaving with it. But that is something that could be addressed, and Mr. Sawyer would have to consent to that condition in order for us to be able to enforce an hours of operation.
What does Mr. Sawyer What does Mr. Sawyer say about the hours? He's here.
He just spoke. We can ask him.
I'm going to ask him if that's okay.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Hours.
As of right now, it would be 24 hours. And we had talked about it. We have several boat owners that are nearby that would have access to go get their boat if they want to go fishing in the morning, first thing in the morning. So at this point, it would be 24.
Mr. Sawyer, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I did have, while you're there,
Yes, sir.
have you ever been invited to speak to any of the individual HOAs off of Corey Road to address directly any of their concerns in that type of forum?
I have not been invited to their HOA. I've invited them several times to our facility. We've had meetings, probably 4 that I can name, that we address their concerns, hence of all the regulations that we kind of put on ourselves. Okay.
Ms. Ellison?
I move to recommend denial of the proposed rezoning request from Sawyer's Property Management Group LLC and find it is not consistent with the envisioned Pitt County 2045 comprehensive plan and is not reasonable because the request is not compatible with similar uses in the surrounding area and is in an area that is not appropriate for the proposed type of development.
We have a motion of denial of the request that has been seconded. Do we have any discussion on that particular motion? All those in favor of the denial of this request, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your left hand. Motion carries to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Now, I believe we have one more planning matter.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, just as a reminder, again, just as with the solar farm, this will still go to the county commissioners in August.
Yes.
And all those who received a mailed notice will also receive a separate mail notice for that as well.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Hill, I believe you're going to present to us the Neuse River Basin hazard mitigation.
If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to let the crowd
That'll
clear
be
out
fine.
again.
We pause just a
And we'll
moment.
get started.
You may continue when you're ready.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you for sticking around at such a late hour tonight. The next item on your agenda is the Noose Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan update. Local governments must have a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan in order to apply and receive grant funding through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program or pre-disaster mitigation, flood mitigation assistance, and the severe repetitive loss program. So that's the purpose of this plan, is to allow for funding sources, grant funding sources, to help mitigate the hazards that we face here. The requirements say that communities must review their hazard mitigation plans and reflect changes in development, progress in local mitigation efforts, and changes to priorities, and resubmit the plan for approval every 5 years. So we are up against that. To give you a little bit of history about the hazard mitigation plan for Pitt County, the original plan was adopted in 2000, and it was solely for Pitt County. In 2004, Pitt County adopted an update to that plan and included the jurisdictions of Bethel, Farmville, Grimesland, and Winterville. Later in 2010, we adopted our first multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan and added the towns of Ayden, Falkland, Fountain, Grifton, and Simpson to encompass all of the towns in Pitt County as part of that plan. In 2015, we adopted our first regional hazard mitigation plan. The regional plan incorporated not only the communities within Pitt County, but branched out into other counties, such as Greene, Jones, Lenoir, and Wayne counties, and all the municipalities included in those counties as well. Back in 2020, we adopted an update to that regional hazard mitigation plans, and the jurisdiction did not change. So here we are 5 years later, again, to update our hazard mitigation plan for the Noose region. Again, map just showing the counties that are impacted as part of this plan. It's Pitt County, Greene, Wayne, Lenoir, and Jones. Planning staff over the last year has attended numerous meetings with consultants, counties, and municipalities regarding the updates. We've submitted the plan to the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, and they have approved the plan, and we are pending FEMA approval at the moment. To ensure compliance with FEMA, they have authorized us to move forward. Our plan is getting ready to expire, so we have the authority to move forward without their approval. If there are any things that need to be added or amended, we can do that following their review, but we don't anticipate that being the case. The following requirements are addressed during the update. We consider the changes in vulnerability due to action implementation, document the success stories where mitigation efforts were effective, and document areas where mitigation actions were not effective. We also document any new hazards that may arise or that we previously overlooked. We incorporate new data or studies for hazards and risk, incorporate new capabilities or changes in capabilities that we intended to use. We incorporate the growth and development related changes to the inventories that we factor in regarding the amount of people that may be impacted based on the change over that 5-year period. We also incorporate action recommendations or changes in prioritization. So what may have been a priority 5 years ago may get shifted around. The main goals is much like the county's mission statement, is to protect the health and safety and general welfare of our residents and minimize the public and private losses due to the natural hazards. We pursue funds to reduce the risk of the natural hazards to existing developments where the hazards are clearly identified and mitigation efforts are proven to be cost effective. We also expedite post-disaster reconstruction through the implementation of mitigation strategies and intergovernmental coordination. We provide education to the citizens that empowers them to protect themselves and their families from these natural hazards. So you'll see some of the priorities are educating the public as well as the professionals that deal with development in our county. So just a broad overview, just to let you know, I think in your packet I included a link to the website for this document. If you happen to click on that link and pull up this document, it is massive. It covers 5 different counties, so I think it was over 500 pages of text. Only a small component is for Pitt County, and it all follows the same pattern if you look through it. There's the introduction, a planning process, a planning area profile, a risk assessment, the capability assessment, and then what I consider the meat of the document is the mitigation strategies and the action plans. And then the following, the last section is the plan maintenance, the fact that it has to be updated every 5 years. So I'm going to try to summarize as best I can what is included in that plan for those who may not have had the opportunity to read through it. The hazards that are identified for Pitt County include dam failure, drought, earthquakes, excessive heat, flooding, hurricanes and tropical storms, tornadoes and thunderstorms, severe winter weather, and wildfires. So those are the hazards that we have identified that we are vulnerable to here in Pitt County. There are different mitigation categories that those priorities are broken down into. There's a prevention component, the property protection, natural resource protection, structural projects, emergency services, and public information and outreach. So, to review our strategies, we have added a few this year, and I will highlight those as we go through our strategies. But many of these strategies are carryovers from our previous plan that we intend to continue to pursue. Review of the county's comprehensive land use plan, which was adopted in '23, annually to ensure that the future land use plan map adequately delineates portions of the county deemed unsuitable for development due to existing environmental conditions. The second priority is to continue to coordinate and collaborate with ECU and Pitt Community College with the development and adoption of their respective hazard mitigation plans. To continue to impose a 2-foot freeboard requirement for all development within a flood hazard area. And priority number 4 is to maintain all FEMA elevation certificates and FEMA floodproofing certificates for residential and non-residential structures. I will say that we intend to make good progress on that this year. That priority, our Board of Commissioners allocated funding for a new software that does just that. It makes elevation certificates, it stores them and makes them available to the public. So it's a great resource that will go a long way in helping educate our public and store that information which is required by FEMA. Also, priority 5, consider this plan's data and recommendations when updating the capital improvement plan for the county, meaning that all capital projects should be sited outside of a flood hazard area. So that's just due to the fact that it would be considered a critical facility, and we don't want that in a hazard area. Seek grant funding through North Carolina Emergency Management and FEMA for mitigation of all repetitive loss properties from future flooding events. Repetitive loss properties are properties that experience flooding multiple times, typically during our hurricanes that we have. And as some of y'all have heard over the last 2 months of meetings, flooding from thunderstorms occur as well and is a real issue here. So priority number 7 is enforce all erosion and sedimentation control regulations. And priority 8 is a new one that we added to enforce our local stormwater regulations. So We might have missed the boat the last update in including that in there, but we did recognize it as a priority that we should have and make sure we reflect that we are enforcing our stormwater regulations. Priority 9, similarly, is enforcement of the local riparian buffer regulations. Expand upon the emergency alert notification system, which was Hyperlink, which we adopted in 2023. That remains a priority. That was a carryover as well. Evaluate and assess the availability of effectiveness of all critical facilities. Number 12, consider the access of all critical facilities is readily available during a flooding event. And priority 13 is maintaining the county's continuity of operations plan, which relates to emergency events and how the county will handle and address those. Yes.
On priority 12.
Uh-huh.
That one, have we established a plan for alternative transportation? That was part of that.
For alternative transportation. So that is something that we have applied for. We are currently working with the Mideast Commission to do a study on transportation system to make sure all critical facilities are accessible and identify any potential problem areas and pursue funding to correct those. So it's a process, but yes, that is something that we have submitted to North Carolina Emergency Management and hope to get some funding as a result. Maintaining the county's special medical needs registry. So the county has a registry of people who are in critical condition that may be on oxygen or have dialysis treatment, something like that. In the event of an emergency, obviously, if they lose power, they're vulnerable. So we have special medical needs facilities that we can locate them to, or at least know where they are, and if they're not in danger, in the event we have power failure, we can respond to them in a timely manner. Maintain the county's local emergency planning committee to monitor the presence of hazardous materials throughout the county, just making sure that we're aware of where these hazardous materials are located and make sure they follow the proper rules and regulations regarding those materials. Educate the public and development community about building in the floodplain areas. So we actually meet with residential, we meet with the development community. We send out information, updates to rules, regulations, and more importantly, we communicate with the realtors in the area about disclosing floodplain information and the limitations of building in those areas.
And you touched on the next point, the real estate agents.
Right.
Because, as you know, and we shared on the field trip, we went on some properties that are being built in, and they're still wet right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's almost, I mean, as an agent, it's almost impossible to avoid that because most of Eastern North Carolina is under year.
Absolutely, and what I would venture to say is, in Pitt County anyway, the most desirable property in the county's jurisdiction is limited because it has already been built on or is currently being farmed. So the pressures from the developers or development in the county is starting to reach into these less desirable areas that may have some more limitations than we've previously seen in the past. So that education is a huge component, just making the citizens aware of what they're getting into.
Because if we don't educate them, it's shame on them.
Exactly. So also utilizing storm surge inundation data provided from North Carolina Emergency Management. Identifying locations and establishing special medical needs shelters for county residents. So I spoke about those special medical needs individuals, but we have to have a place to shelter them outside of the general public or general population shelters. Currently, we're using Walter B. Jones facility during emergency events for the special medical needs population. However, that facility has some issues and limitations within itself. So we have started the process of identifying a new location to build a special medical needs facility through grant monies through the North Carolina Emergency Management. Also implementing the recommendations of the Hurricane Matthew Resilient Redevelopment Plan. That was included last update. We'll continue to do that. And assisting, a new priority is assisting with the development of that Mid-East Regional Mobility Infrastructure Resilience Plan, Mr. Little, that we just spoke about, that looks at the transportation network. Also, using new flood advisory maps to inform the public of potential flood hazards that exist on their property. These new advisory maps may not be reflected on the current floodplain maps that we have in place. These are issued in the event that we have an area that FEMA might have missed by including it on the official map, but put out an advisory map saying this area is also prone to that flooding while they transition to adoption of that new floodplain map. I promise I'm getting close. Bear with me. Making repairs to the Lake Glenwood Dam and monitoring the high hazard dams within Pitt County. That is something that we added to our hazard mitigation plan as an update as the county has acquired Lake Glenwood, and we are in the process of getting the plans approved to make those repairs now. So we'll also monitor the other high hazard dams throughout the county to make sure they are in good repair. Yes.
The sign said that was put up at Lake Glenwood that it's going to be a park, a picnic area and stuff like that. Why are they repairing the dam?
So we are repairing the dam because it was found to have deficiencies in the dam. And before we begin to allow the general public out there for park purposes, we want to ensure that the dam is safe and functioning correctly. So
Do you know how low they're going to take the water?
I believe it will.
Take it down or rat smart if they want to.
Yes, so I think as part of the repair for the dam, that's what they're working on now. They'll have a dewatering plan to drop the water levels down and make the repairs and then allow the water to resume at its normal level. Enforcing the county's water supply watershed plan is a new item that we've included, as well as establishing cooling center stations through partnerships with faith-based organizations. We are excited. Hopefully, the Salvation Army has expressed interest in establishing a cooling center during the hot days, during summer months, and we look to expand upon that with the faith-based community for people who lack air conditioning in their homes, or maybe the homeless population who don't have access to air conditioning. Also implementing community wildfire protection plans in each fire district, and that will be in coordination with the North Carolina Forestry Division and Emergency Management here with Pitt County. So, a lot of different priorities that we've added and carried over. I will say that I feel like looking at some of the other counties that are in this regional plan, we have made progress on a lot of our priorities here in Pitt County. We've added a lot new, but we hope to continue to seek funding and come up with innovative ideas to meet these priorities.
How would this plan be affected if FEMA were to go away?
Good question. There's a lot of uncertainties, as you probably are aware if you watch the news with the FEMA. I don't 100% know. I can't stand up here and tell you 100% what might happen. I would anticipate that if FEMA is dissolved or goes away, as you asked, that the state would have to step up and take on some of those responsibilities. I don't know how that would impact funding from the federal level, if it's directly to the state at that point. I'm not sure. What I do know is right now we're required to have this plan. We'll get it updated, and if anything changes, we'll at least have it in place and can say to the state, should they take over, hey, we've got this plan in place. If there's any funding available for these priorities, we would appreciate it here in Pitt County, but a lot of uncertainty, so good question. My recommendation tonight is to recommend approval of adoption of the Neuse River Basin Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan to the Board of Commissioners. Hopefully they will be able to consider that recommendation on August 4th. So I'll answer any other questions you might have regarding the Hazard Mitigation Plan update.
Any further questions, Board? Like a motion to accept these, or
Motion
to adopt?
to recommend
Recommend
adoption.
adoption, because
Yes,
the Pitt County Commissioners will do that.
correct.
The recommendation that we approve the planning staff's recommendation to adopt the plan.
Mr. Hardy has made a motion. Ms. Bassett. We have a motion that has been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please raise their right hand. Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And I do want to point out for the viewing public, the website is listed on the screen here tonight. For those who may want to go and review the plan, if they have any questions, they can reach out to our department. We'll be glad to answer them. Last item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is the informational items. I won't belabor the meeting any longer, other than to say that the monthly reports for May and June are included again in your packet. I know we had taken a break as we transitioned to a new permitting system. We've now found a way to get those numbers from the new permitting system, and we updated those monthly reports in your packet. There's also some various articles and correspondences from the newspaper regarding planning activities here in Pitt County. So with that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Or do we have any other items that we need to address?
Move to approve. I mean, adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
And building families is the pursuit of places that promise stability, growth, and ample opportunity for the future.
One of the reasons that parents are leaving urbanized areas to come to Pitt County is because of the community that we have here. There are such great